You're still within the 1 minute. I'd like to call to order the work session for the Town Council of the Town of Chesapeake Beach for May 12th, 2026. I'll note that John Evans is not here yet, but I believe is on his way. Other council members are all here. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Our first item on the agenda, Susan Alexander is here to talk to us, give us an informal discussion on the tree board. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, we submitted 2 amendments to the ordinance for you folks for consideration. The first one is very simple. It was, I misinterpreted one of the clauses, and in discussions with the town attorney, she clarified what the meaning of that particular clause was. And we just thought if we reworded it, amended the wording, then any future volunteer who's not a legal person would not make the same mistake as I did. And the revision is for 26.3E-3E. And I read it to mean that the tree board was the appeal board. But the clause actually reads that the tree board itself will perform functions that the appeal board requires of us. So we just wanted to clarify that the tree board is not the appeal board for the tree permits, that it actually will just perform functions if the appeal board asks us to. So that's the revision to 26.3-3E. If anybody has any questions on that one.
Any questions?
Was that, that we had to get approval on every tree? And then
that's the second, that's going to be our second.
Do you think that was the appeal confusion and clarification on that?
Typically, no.
Okay.
We did have one issue that came before the board and we knew it was getting appealed. So when I was reading the ordinance, I tried to jump in and perform a function. And Alyssa said, no, that's not your responsibility. There is a separate appeals board. I thought it was the function of the tree board to review all that stuff. And she said, no.
Thank you.
And it's just across the board, any appeals go to any appeals of decisions on tree permits goes to a separate group of people, not the tree board. And we just wanted to have that clarified in the ordinance that it wasn't us.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions on that one?
Any questions?
I will have a question for the attorney, just to make sure that nothing in the tree ordinance supersedes the critical area forest protection laws. So when the attorney is available for that question and the response, I'll ask that, but that doesn't have anything to do with what you proposed for your amendment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody else?
All right. The second one amendment that we're asking addresses the question that you have. And it's, again, rewording the ordinance to 263-4D. And the original mission or intent of this ordinance was to protect the overall tree canopy of the town. It was not to sit there and say the tree board is going to make a decision on every single tree that a property owner wants to take down. And what we found in actually working this ordinance over the lifespan that it's been for the last 2-3 years, most of the issues coming before us have been about one tree on one property. And almost across the board, we have said, okay, because the roots are digging up the driveway, the tree's leaning over, it's dead, it's overgrown its spot, all appropriate reasons for a property owner to have the right to take down a tree in on their property. So we wanted to clarify and update the ordinance to read that tree board will only review tree permit applications that apply to 3 or more trees. Because our intent is we wanted to be involved in any conversation with a developer or property owner that wanted to clear cut land and make a significant impact on the tree canopy of the town. And so that's why we would like to still be involved in that, but we feel like we don't need to be making addressing any tree permit that comes in where they want to take one tree down. We've spent a year with Samelia and her team developing processes whereby Jay and Sarah review all permits that come in. They know what our recommendations would be. If you're going to take one tree down, we ask that you replant with one additional tree on your property in a better location, a better fit for tree species for your property. They all know what those procedures are. So between Jay and Sarah, they can make the decisions on a lot of the applications that are coming through without having to call a formal meeting of the tree board. And so that is our intent with the second one, to just add the recommendation that any application requesting the removal of three or more trees will then come before the board. And we will just say, yes, we recommend this, or no, this is our preference of what we would like you to do on your property.
Anybody got any questions? John, go ahead.
So previously, anytime somebody wanted to take one or two trees, they would have to come to the tree board?
If it was a certain size. The ordinance says
right.
that the tree has to be over 78 inches, 54 inches. Anything less than that, no, it doesn't have to come before the board. But if a single tree was over 50 inches in circumference, it was coming before the board.
Right.
Whether it was dead, whether it was,
Okay.
leaning up against the house, whether it was perfectly healthy, it was coming before the board. And we were just finding that
Yeah.
most of the applications we were saying yes to and, move on.
It's pretty tedious.
Tedious. It wastes everybody's time, our time, the homeowner's time. They don't need to sit and wait for us for 3 weeks to make a decision on whether or not they can take down one tree on their property.
Yeah, I remember that happened with Bayside Baptist. They had some trees that were kind of like dying and like threatening a house. And
Yeah,
I
those are the kinds of decisions. Jay goes out and looks at them as soon as the application comes in. If it's dead, it's drying, it looks dangerous, it doesn't come before the board.
yeah, this makes sense to me. I mean,
If I may, Sue,
Mhm.
because we met last night over a Bradford pear that outgrew its footprint in a 25-year-old neighborhood. And really, if I'd have went on site, I would have said, take it down, invasive species, replant it. So to be clear, this doesn't stop the permit process. This just stops the
Right.
review of the board. Does that make sense? They
Yeah.
still have any tree in town, we cleared all the citizens, because you still go through the permit process, but wouldn't require a meeting with these changes on every single tree.
there's
Just want to
still-
make that clear.
It's still the 50 inches or above has
Yeah.
to come to the town.
Correct.
And then it does not supersede site plan review or critical area review, correct?
Sarah makes critical area
Forest.
review before it even comes to us. So she's already made, and see, this is what we're talking about. She has already made that decision. There's so many processes in place now that we've put in place between Jay and Sarah. They can make all those decisions without it having to come before the tree board. We're going to look at big changes to the tree canopy. We will speak
For
forward on that, make an
as-built
opinion,
lots, I
make an opinion
assume.
on that, make recommendations on situations like that. Like if you're taking the Bradford pear down, it's invasive, we don't want it to be in town, please replace it with a more native Maryland tree on a better location on your property. And it's, it's this recommendation, and we make that recommendation.
Yeah.
So we are ultimately replacing the canopy, but we just don't need, they have the lists of the approved trees for our town that are appropriate for our town that would fit in the critical area. So they're already looking at that before it even comes before the tree board.
And just for clarification, we as the board can be more scrutinizing or more restrictive. We cannot override any agency or board. We can't say, well, critical area said this, we're going to say this. We have to follow all of those rules. We could add additional, but we cannot take any of those away, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And Sarah writes up a really nice report that she sends to us before any board meeting that goes check 1, check 2, this is passed, this is correct, this fits this clause. So we have all that in our heads before we even look at a tree permit.
Right.
Bet you'll like it better.
Yes,
All right.
very much.
So one thing I've actually have an opinion on it, and it's sort of with this, but the opposite. So everybody has to ask permission, the restrictions and all this, but then you say, unless you have this tree, because we say that tree has a certain value, but then what about the people that have a tree like that? Wouldn't there be maybe a process, and this isn't about this, but a process for the them to reach out and say, hey, we have English ivy, our tree's getting hurt. And it feels like, where do you go to have help? And for me, when I think of a tree board, I think you're supposed to kind of have both balances. I know that the green team, it does a lot, but I think there should be a process that says, yes, this is an approved thing, and have some sort of mechanism. Because, I mean, who's going to be able to go take care of certain trees? I mean, I've
You
spent
mean after have
years.
the tree board do the work or
No.
find somebody to do it?
Well, no. So us as a town,
Right,
say we're a tree city and we get a cool plaque, right?
yep,
But then we say you can't do something even though it's on your property. But then we don't want to hold any responsibility to help take care of the thing that we say we hold the value to.
okay,
So it's the town, if we want to claim, hey, makes us a town like this, we should say that we also have an obligation to help out.
right.
So
Okay.
it's,
I
if you
know
want to take care of them, maybe we should help take care of them.
May I chime in? too?
Sure.
Okay. So I think that's a fair point. Part of that is, like, if we want to make that a requirement, then the council would need to propose adding that to the legislation. The biggest thing that Sue's has been working diligently to do is to streamline the current legislation, because it's not clear how you actually can take action on it, right? There was a lot of hiccups when it came to actually doing it in a way that was efficient for the whole team. And so what Sue is proposing right now is really more about streamlining what exists now. And what I hear you saying is that you'd like for the council to figure out how you can make the tree board more accessible. And I think that would be changing the ordinance outside of what we're talking about right now.
Well, yes, but I was asking her because she puts a lot of work into it, what her opinion was. And because if she said that, no, that wouldn't be something for us to do, or that's not what it's about, then I accept that as an answer.
I would say, I agree with you. We have had many discussions between the tree board and the green team about dealing with some of the issues like invasives in town and all that kind of stuff. The tree board does have a certified master gardener on the tree board. We are happy to have any citizen come to one of our tree board meetings saying, this is my problem, how do I fix it? And we can make recommendations on how to fix it. Whether or not the town incurs the cost of executing, that's on you guys. But we certainly, anybody who wants to come before the board with a question, a problem, whatever, that is part of my interpretation of what we are. We're an advisory group.
If there was a recommendation, if there was a recommendation that y'all,
Trees or shrubs or anything like that.
if
Yeah.
there was a recommendation or something like that,
Yes,
I'd welcome it.
yep.
Thank
Yep.
you.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Somebody just wants to get on the agenda for the tree board, the next tree board committee.
Thank you.
So we can do that. Yep.
All right.
And I would also add, Sarah has a list, or we've created a list that Sarah's, I guess, managing, of all of the approved by the University of Maryland's Department Cooperative Extension, all approved trees and shrubs for our specific area. And Calvert County has a list too, like trees that are non-invasive, trees that are good to plant. We've broken it down by trees that are good to plant in wet, shady areas, trees that are good to plant in sunny, dry areas. So we have some guidance already prepared at town for specific issues. But if something individual comes up, we're happy to speak to it, address it at our meeting.
Well, thank you very much.
We do have Jay's on the board and our master gardeners on the board. So we have people who can give good advice on how to fix problems.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Appreciate the
That's it for me.
information.
No questions?
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Next item on the agenda is budget discussion. Our treasurer, Dan Baden, is going to work us through this. You've got the documents in front of you.
Yep, so you should have documents in front of you, and hopefully my AV works here, and I'll have the same things that you have in front of you up on the
Okay.
screen. So we have already gone over the general fund, the wastewater treatment plant mitigation funds last month. This month, or tonight, we're going to go through the utility fund and the water park fund. So I'm going to start off with the utility fund with some general comments, and then we'll get into the individual line item budget. So in the utility fund on the revenue side, the rates and the dollar amounts that you see in the revenues are based on the study that was done over the last year and approved by the council. The 20% credit that has been provided to the residents over the past 6 quarters has ended. That the credit went from January of 2025 through June of 2026. We received a $600,000 grant from the state this year through the bond bills, and that is being included as a revenue for the Harbor Road Well House project. And you'll also see that on the expenditure side as a expenditure. When you look at the revenues and compare it to the expenditures, the revenues will exceed expenditures by $566,144. This was shown when we were discussing the rates in the 5-year projection. We will generate a surplus early on, but in fiscal year 28 and 29, there's some large projects that are going to take place in the treatment plant, and we will need to pay for the cost of those, through the utility fund for the town share. And I'll go through those costs as we go through the individual spreadsheets. There are water and sewer connection fees anticipated to be collected on 2 properties on F Street. So we've included $10,000 for each of the water connections and $20,000 for each of the sewer connections in the revenue projections. On the
Sorry, Dan, before we move on to the next slide, just one quick comment. The first one on revenues, just for clarity's sake, the council, I'm not sure what we mean here by approved by council. The council's not approving. You talking about the professional study that was approved by council? Or you're talking about the rates approved by council?
The rates that were approved.
Yeah, so there are no rates approved by council until we vote on the utility fund that has the rate schedule on it, so just technically speaking, the council hasn't approved rates.
You all voted on the rates, that is what we would incorporate into the budget, but you're correct, until you approve the budget, technically those rates, I guess, would not apply. But, so they were the ones that you approved by vote at a meeting a couple.
Yeah, well, that's not really, they're not approved. I believe it was a work session. So there's no real vote that occurs at a work session, only at a regular meeting. So there's really no council approval of rates to this point.
Then they are consensus.
There you go.
Clarification. Talked about the cap. So we're on the expenses. So on the expense side, a update analysis of staffing costs was performed, and allocations of the overhead staff was allocated appropriately. That was also discussed at the same time we were discussing the rate structure. The utility fund allocation of the fixed and variable water reclamation fund was allocated in the amount of $892,655 for the variable rate and $359,938. I'm sorry, the other way around. The $892,000 for fixed and $359,000 for the variable costs. The capital projects are budgeted $665,000, which includes $65,000 for repairs to a line on F Street and $600,000 for the Harbor Road Well House project. And then on debt service payments will total.
So there was no other projects proposed, just them two?
Correct. As budget's presented. Yep. Debt service payments total 321,849. And, there is a schedule for that in your packets. Fiscal year 27 is the final year for the 2008 A water quality bond. So that will be paid off at the end of the fiscal year. So as we move on to the spreadsheet itself, which breaks down the revenue and expense into the individual line items. We'll go through the revenues first. You're pretty familiar with the format of the report where we show some prior year's information for 23, 24, 25, and then the current year budgeted and actuals through February 28th. And then the final column is the budget that we're looking to approve or discuss this evening. So the first item on there is the miscellaneous grants, which is the grant for the bond bill for the Harbor Road Well House project that I mentioned earlier in the amount of $600,000. The rest of the revenue items are based on the rates that were discussed and approved by consensus a couple months ago. For all of the different water and sewer usage and fixed costs for those. There's also investment interest on accounts or monies in the investment accounts, estimated at $150,000. We have the water and sewer capital connection fees, which, as I said, were 2 taps, 2 properties. The sewer connection is $20,000 per connection and the water is $10,000. So those are in the amount of $40,000 and $20,000. And then the final revenue source is from the towers that are on the cell towers that are on the water towers. So the total revenues as projected is at $4,040,581. If you want to, I could stop there and see if there's any questions on the revenue.
Council, any questions?
Ones on F Street, are those 2 new properties or what? Why are they putting new taps there?
I'll let Jay answer that question.
They are. It was a builder that built the 2 houses on Elm Street. So one street up. And it's possible. I know I've met with him twice. So we plug those into the budget. It's possible he builds them in this next upcoming budget, but it may take a little longer with permitting.
Anything else? Okay.
I have
Oh.
a couple questions,
right.
and I won't take too long because I didn't provide consensus last time. So I'll just point out a couple observations. I'm a little bit disappointed that all the tiers are staying within the residential community, and we are burdening residents without burdening commercial high users in the same way with the tiered structure. And then the 2829 Headworks project, does that involve a capacity increase of any kind?
No, that's not a capacity increase. That would be for the Headworks improvements.
It's just a quality increase, no capacity increase?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I'm a little bit surprised that the actuals don't show a transfer in general fund in fiscal year 24. I'm not sure about fiscal year 25, but I just remind everybody that we did a lot of utility improvements with ARPA funds that could have been used for anything, not necessarily just utility fund expenses. And then I don't think we've ever seen the actual salaries Are we going to do that this budget cycle? Are we going to look at the town staff salaries?
I think it's fair. Yeah.
Can you speak to the conversation that we
Yeah, so as we get later down the agenda under the general fund, there has been a addition made to the general fund ordinance, which is approving the cost of living and merit increases for the employees. It was this, when Samelia and I discussed that, the chart does say that salaries are approved by ordinance, so that's why we added it in there. There is a separate schedule for all departments and all employees and all salaries that I believe last year we had a closed session and sat down and answered any questions that council had with that. So I think the idea is that we would go through the general fund changes in that ordinance. And then, if the council would like, we could do the same thing, go into a closed session to discuss that. I don't know if we do it tonight or do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's something that we've always done. And I think we should continue to do that.
Okay. So I don't know whether that would be tonight or at the next meeting. I don't know.
Sure, and I think Eric and I are coming in different directions with that, but my concern is just making sure that our funds are stable and they're operating the way they're supposed to be. Because the utility fund has been draining the general fund and causing problems with general fund projects and the ability to do them. So I do want to make sure that we aren't continuing to have that problem. And then my second concern is that this does represent an effective rate increase for people that are paying one thing this year. And then if we put this budget in place, they will be paying more. And the entire burden of that is falling within our residential population, and it's not being absorbed by our commercial population at the same level. So that's my general complaint about this.
Yeah, I mean,
And I
I
do
think
think
one of the
overall-
things is with proactive approaches create so they don't have an emergency where the general fund, I think in past times, so not having like a proactive approach is, I think, where they've had to have reactive general fund supplements. Yeah.
I think a proactive approach is appropriate, but it's not appropriately absorbed entirely within the residential population. And so that is my comment.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? All right, go ahead, Dan.
All right, moving on to the expenditure side. The salaries we've kind of just touched on. It's per the salary schedule, which, we'll have a closed session to show you the breakdown of that. But we discussed that as well. We were looking at the rates and the allocation. That was a whole nother separate discussion. And, the percentages that we presented at that time are what is included in the budget currently.
And can we use like MML? I think they have structured guidelines for pay. Can we use their information that's available for cross comparison for pay and salaries?
I believe the MML survey, you have to provide your information to them in order to share in the surveys that they have. And we have not done that. So I would say that's probably not readily available at this time. I don't know how quick that could be, but, obviously, it can be if we participate in the survey and provide them the information. And again, I don't know the whole process of how long that takes, for them to then provide us the information. I don't know if all the same classes of employees that we have are included in their survey.
All right. Well, it might be something nice to have some information on. Thank you.
I concur with that. I think it's worth sharing information to have access to information of, you know, typical wages across the state.
Okay, we'll work on that. Continuing on down to the continuing education, just a slight increase there based on historical numbers and the cost of training going up. The taxes and benefits is a percentage of the actual salary and wages. And for the town as a whole, it usually runs at about 50%. That includes all the payroll taxes, health insurance, retirement, and other benefits that the town offers. Meter repair and maintenance remains at 25,000. Water plant repairs and maintenance is at 40,000. This is consistent with current fiscal year. Engineering and professional fees has increased to 61,500, and you can see the breakdown of the various costs associated with that. Safety at 15,000, which remains consistent with the prior year. Interest and administrative expense for the long-term debt is actual figures as shown on the debt service schedule, which is also included in your packets. So you can refer to that. It's probably the last page of the packet, and I put it up on the screen as well. Safety. I'm sorry, just did that one. Pump repair remains at 50,000. Supplies has been reduced 5,000. We haven't been close to the 50,000, going back 5 years. So we lowered that to 45,000. Mailings has increased to 10,000, remains consistent at 10,000. And we are using a service to mail those bills now. Missed utility fees is at $2,000. It was trending over that the current fiscal year, but a lot of that had to do with purchase of paint for marking for the fiber optic projects that were going on in town that should be completed before the next fiscal year. Line repairs and maintenance increased to 80,000. Again, just based on current trends. Banking fees, $50,000. That remains consistent. The fixed and variable costs, are just formula that comes over from the wastewater treatment plant, based on the costs and our allocation of those expenses. Utilities for Comcast, Verizon, gas for vehicles, BG&E is increased 5,000. Energy's increasing. Miscellaneous remains the same. Insurance costs looks like it's been coming in less than what we've projected. That includes workers' comp and then the general liability and property insurances for legit. Also include a 10% increase on those costs. It still comes in at about 50,000, whereas 44,904 for the current year. Generator maintenance. This is budgeted 20,000. Capital projects was 665,000, which was the Harbor Road project and the F Street line repair. The reserve for headworks is, the reserve based on revenues being greater than the expenditures, 566,144. That was anticipated so that we would be able to pay for the headworks projects as we go forward in 28 and 29. The final numbers are the principal payment amounts for the debt service. And I have a copy of the schedule up on the screen. You also have it in your packet that shows you each of the 3 borrowings. And you can see that the first one is paid off in fiscal year 28. Second one, as stated earlier, is paid off in fiscal year 27. And then third one will be paid off in, I think that's 36, fiscal year 36. So if you add all those together, it comes to the $4,040,581, which agrees with the revenue figure. On the schedule of fees, everything remained the same except for the water and sewer billing rates. Nothing else was changed for any of the other items that you see on those schedules. I think that includes everything that was in your packet.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I had a quick question. Are we gonna bill back IQ Fiber for the paint that we spent?
I was
for
thinking that
markings?
too.
No, but we're in discussions about some other things about that.
And then the second question ties back to the mailings. If we added in the new mailing system, wouldn't that drop the cost that we would be spending on future mailings, or am I conflating it with something else? Because it's $10,000. We introduced a new mailing system that does it, that covers all those costs or covers all that action.
Yeah, the current cost to date was $4,000, and it was under $10,000 leading up to this point. So, I don't think that it's that large of an amount. I mean, it was the postage, I guess. I mean, we calculate what that is, but the 10,000 should cover it.
I guess let me rephrase what I'm saying. Is that 10,000 covers the technology or the contract costs that we have to do the automated mailings?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I thought it was in addition to, so thanks.
So I see salary, there's $54,000 that's less. So how many employees, how many hours does that represent? We have $450,000 for salaries to $400,000 for salaries. 2, I'm showing only $25,000 for maintenance on the whole system. And then I'm showing $20,000 on generator maintenance. Correct?
Those are the figures that are there, yes.
The salary question?
Is there a question? What
Yeah,
was
so,
the question?
so how much, so you have 454,000 in budget year 2026, and you have $400,000 this year.
Mhm.
So is it loss of employees? Is it salary got moved? Where's that, what's that $54,000 deduction from? Where's that come from? Where's it go?
I stated in my general comments about the expenditures, based on the discussions the council had earlier this year on the allocation of employees to the utility fund. We came up with, through different studies and things that we did, a updated analysis of where they should be costed to. And we shared that with the council before, and those are the percentages that are used. And when you look at the salary schedule and go into closed session, you'll be able to see each employee and where they are allocated.
I just had a question about the reserves. Is that a new line item that we added? The 566,000? Is that a new line item that we just started doing?
I
So-
added in there in order to show the surplus. I mean, I could have shown it as at the very bottom as a surplus or deficit, but I think, saying that it's being used for a specific purpose, I think made more sense.
That might help make sure that that's actually what it gets used for. Yeah, I think that's a good call, because I think before we were having issues by getting blindsided by stuff, and that's why they had to jack the rates up so quickly because they realized they weren't lining up with the expenses. So I think getting ahead of it is a good idea.
I mean, no, we did a lot of work and it's only $54,000. It seemed like there was a lot more than $54,000 in adjustments we made because you have, would we give a grant? The general fund grant was $549,000, and now I thought that was supposed to be offset in there, so that doesn't seem like that adds up. Like the $549,000, right? For the general fund grant, that was a 20% reduction, correct?
Where are you getting the 540?
In the revenue? The general
Yes.
grant, general fund was 549,000. That's that 20% discount, correct?
Yes.
And then we're saying it's because of employees, but that's only 50,000 or
But
54,000.
it wasn't all employees. I mean, you have all the other expenses, the employee expense wasn't the sole amount. If you look at fiscal year 25 or 24, 255,975 was your salary cost, and now you're at 400. So salaries only accounted for 145,000 of that 549. I mean, you had your expenses there regardless of the salaries.
Yeah, we just
It wasn't all associated with salaries.
So if we take,
You have to go back before FY24. You have to look at FY23 where there was nothing in there for salaries and benefits. And then that's how you get to 24, then 25, you start ticking up in salaries.
so
That's how you went from,
we had to pull some of that 549 from the general fund. Like it didn't all come from salaries.
Right,
so
the 549 covered, the 20% credit.
Yep.
But there was more than just salaries associated with that.
So the rates are going to go up $1 million because if you get rid of the 549,000, that moves that down to 3 million, and then we're going to 4 million. So that's $1 million. If we have $3,581,000 on fiscal year for the revenue, and then we have this, and we're giving 549,000 from the general fund, right? That means our revenue is 3 million. Our actual revenue is 3 million, according to our bills, utility fund bills over the last 12 months. Then we have,
$600,000 grant.
Yeah.
but the $600,000 grant is there. So you're saying it's $400,000 increase then? Is that what we're saying?
What is the question
About
for
that.
Dan?
Dan, some of the discrepancies, you can find one in deprecation. We didn't deprecate anything. I don't know if that's fiscally sound, but that's what we're not doing.
Depreciation.
Depreciation.
Or I'm sorry, did I say
You said
deprecation?
depreciation.
I did say deprecate. Now that you said that, I do remember.
My error is the 600,000. So my mistake is the 600,000. So when we're looking through it, Jamie corrected me. So the 600,000, that's what I'm expecting it to be, about a $400,000 increase, because our 20% deduction it's going to be about 10%.
It's actually though, if you look at it's not an increase, because if you look at the grant for the 20%, it was $550,000. But the difference is $400,000. So
Correct.
so it's not an actual increase on the rates. The rates are not going up. It's a small increase or a decrease. But that was the conversation is you're
The
going.
rates are going up. If
Well, the
we're-
rates inherently would go up because you've removed 20% discount, but the rate chart did not actually go up. So the discount got removed, yes, but the rates did not go up.
The effect will be a rate increase.
If you take away a discount, then of course you're going to pay more. But yes, I mean, I don't know how to get around. There's no way around if you
I mean,
remove
there-
discount.
There's several ways around it, but
You could make a motion to propose a change.
I could, but we see how my motions go.
And we've got a ways to go on this discussion, or we're going to be here very late. So
I
unless there's a specific action.
No, I just have two comments on the work site, on this particular, on the expenditures for the utility fund we just went over. Whoever was commenting, are you complete?
I have two questions, but you can go first if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to touch on the depreciation also. In 2023, 2024, 2025, there are line items for depreciation of sewer and also line items for two line items for depreciation of water. I'm not really sure. I guess it's really only needs to be one because it's just they're blank when they when it looks like only one line item for water. But anyway, point is, can you explain to me why the previous treasurer and administration included depreciation and why we've chosen not to?
I can try to explain it. So some items in budgeting, you need to budget the money coming in against what you're spending out. Depreciation is a non-cash expense. So when you're budgeting to find out how much money you need to cover your expenses, to me, depreciation doesn't matter. When we prepare the financial report at the end of the year, we do record depreciation to show what the full operating cost is of, in this case, the utility fund. But as far as generating money, you don't need money to pay for depreciation. So therefore, to show it in the budget, and I don't believe the past budgets from past treasurers included that. The way this got in for fiscal year 23, 24, and 25 is when I went back to the historical data and just plugged it into the spreadsheet, it shows up. Because when you do the adjustments at the end of the year, those show up as an expense.
All right. So if you don't include them here, but you include them in the audit at the end of the year, then you're gonna then it's gonna show a negative, even though it's a wash here.
Right. On the cash.
So that would make sense.
Yes.
To include it to me, so that these budgets match the audit, and but and then are there any tax implications?
We're not tax. We're tax exempt.
Tax
as a
exempt.
government.
Yeah. Okay.
There's no tax. It's really just an accounting difference.
Yeah. And how do you know how they calculated and how we intend to calculate depreciation for sewer and water?
We have a full spreadsheet with all the assets that are on there, anything that is a capital asset at the year. So if we spend the $665,000 in capital projects, that will all go over into the fixed asset spreadsheet, and then we depreciate those over our fixed asset schedule.
Okay.
And that's how they get into the audited financial statements. And we do that once a year at the end of the year.
Okay. So
It's not
there's just a
process,
schedule.
but we do it for all the enterprise funds that have to be depreciated so that the audited statements are correct.
Gotcha. Does anyone else have any questions about depreciation before I have one more question on a different topic?
No, I thought it was a good explanation.
Okay. And this is really just for you guys. Do you know when we have planned the closed session for salaries?
The next opportunity for closed session would be Thursday.
Regular council meeting.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So that would be nice. I think for me, it would be nice because all of these budgets have salaries spread out in them. So to have that overarching salary picture while we're considering these other budgets?
For both the general fund and the.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'm not sure if everyone agrees, but I'd like to get that out of the way as soon as possible. When we do that, will there be information that maps like where salaries or percents of salaries live in different budgets?
The cost allocation for the salary.
Yeah, so there will be, the schedule that we have is broken down by employee, what that individual employee's projected increases are from fiscal year 26 to 27, and then their salary is then costed across all funds. So you'll
Okay,
see
'cause yeah.
what amount dollar-wise, percent and dollar-wise is allocated for each employee
Right.
through each.
Yeah, because I think it's important for us to see and improve and approve the salaries in general, but it's also really important for us to understand where this salaries or percents of salaries live
Sure.
in different budgets.
Yeah, my thing sticks out to me is like the continuing education. Like classes are more expensive than $7,000. I don't know how many employees we have, but if everybody's getting properly trained, I know classes are pretty expensive. I don't know, I take 3 or 4 a year.
Yeah, but you do have a continuing education budget within each within each fund. So if someone is only allocated 20% to utility fund, only 20% of their continuing education is allocated there, and the rest is absorbed in other funds. And there's a lot of different individuals that are costed partially to the utility fund. So.
I'd like to speak a little bit to that. So we're members of Maryland Rural Water. DJ and myself just attended their conference. So we host those classes here, and that lets all of our employees attend them for free. So by using this town hall and Josh's employees too, we get to attend those classes for free. Just FYI.
Yeah, because it turns into like a web of for us to try to figure out, where everything's going, how much is in this, what are we really looking at here, what are we really looking at in another budget, in this budget and that budget, and they're all kind of, so it's really important for us as a council to understand the entire salary picture as a whole, and then understand how it's allocated into each budget.
Sure, and I don't know if Samaria would want to do this, but we can provide that schedule prior to the meeting. And I would say have the closed session before the meeting, because at the next meeting, we are hoping, if there's enough council members here, to adopt the general fund and the wastewater treatment plant mitigation fund budgets at that meeting.
Yeah, I don't know if we should do that, but I think that, I like the idea of the closed session before the meeting, but I don't know about dispersing information prior to that.
I'll follow up with you all about how to get the information. I will share it.
And if we're not going to do it before, then I would suggest maybe having the closed session before the next town meeting.
All right.
Or at the beginning, maybe not, but yeah, right.
Yeah. All right.
The last two questions, sorry.
Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
The tipping fees went down significantly. Is there a reason for that?
We have tipping fees.
$1,316,962 versus $892.
Oh, they're the treatment plant fixed in capital costs.
Okay, that's not a tipping fee.
Yeah.
Okay,
That it's just based on our percentage from whatever the wastewater treatment plant budget is. So we'd have to go back and look at that. I believe there are less capital costs.
I think
This fiscal year or fiscal year 27 than what was proposed. That's the main difference.
no, that makes sense now that I know they're not tipping fees.
Yeah.
And then Appendix E submeters. Is there An appendix, can somebody tell me what's in Appendix E?
Where are we looking here?
It's the last thing on fire hydrants and meters, the very last line. It says see Appendix E.
Under other
On the
connection fees.
spreadsheet?
No, right here.
On the
Other,
other connection fees. There are other connection fees.
On the schedule?
So
Schedule
right
of
on the
fees.
page where the rates are. At the very end. I've had questions about getting sub-meters or different sub-meters. I
That's
don't
one
know.
shows the utility billing fee.
It's this page.
here.
I know I have a lot of highlights on mine, but the one with these rates on it.
Oh, the rates
And then
on
it's
it.
at the end here.
I'm not familiar with what that is. I mean, like I said, all of these have been existing. Maybe it doesn't apply. Are you familiar with any sub-meter rate schedule?
Yeah, basically, it's the cost of a sub-meter to the citizen. So if you apply for one, it's on that schedule of fees. And I don't know them exactly, but Fran has it. That's what it is.
So people can still apply for a sub-meter and there is a schedule of fees somewhere that we will be voting on
Correct,
for sub-meters.
correct.
And they reflect, I guess, your costs because you have to install them?
They reflect actual costs because we have to provide the meter and time, and it depends on the nature of it. Does it involve another pit? Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? So the schedule of fees has like a menu, if you will. And we choose it's this, it's this, it's this, and that's how you get it. But the meter, the pit, and the MXU are standard. Everything else you may need or you may not need depending on the application.
Okay, but you know what it is. You're comfortable with the rates. They cover your costs.
Yeah, I mean, personally,
Correctly.
I know what it is. I wouldn't say I'm comfortable with it because I wouldn't provide a sub meter to anyone, to be honest. I wouldn't, that's my opinion. But I'm comfortable with the process.
Okay, is there code that indicates sub-meters?
Yeah, it was voted in a
long time ago.
long time ago. So it's existed.
Okay,
And I personally have a sub-meter. The reason I have a sub-meter is that I have an irrigation system. And the irrigation system doesn't pay for sewer, it pays for water. So the sub-meter monitors the water that goes into the irrigation system, and that affects the total amount. You know, it takes off the sewer amount for what's on the sub-meter. Okay.
Don't take it
'cause-
personally, Bruce.
Huh?
Don't take it personally.
sub-meters in town?
I think there was like 20 or 40 when I went through the water, and all the bills that were there, you could see who had sub-meters and who didn't when we did all that auditing of it. I mean, it's in the data.
If everybody sub-meter, it would.
Well, but it's
Lori,
only,
the problem is
it's only if you're using water and you're not using sewer.
yeah, it's impossible to find a plumber to do it. I was looking at doing it with I called like 20 plumbers in the area and nobody does it. So I don't even know how you get it done. Yeah, well, you got to be a master
All right,
certified.
can we move
plumber.
on? Can we move on? All right. Is there anything else? Can we move on? All right. Let's go to the water park fund budget.
Great. So, as everyone knows, we're hoping to open the water park before the end of fiscal year 27. So fiscal year 27 will be the first year of operation of the water park since it closed 3 seasons ago. The water park, based on scheduled days open, it's scheduled to be open 72 days during the fiscal year 27-28 season. So, 30% of the days open would be during fiscal year 27 and 70% of the days open are during fiscal year 28. And I just point that out because a lot of the cost allocation is kind of based on some of those percentages. But you also need to consider there are startup costs in fiscal year 27 that include salaries, training of staff, and marketing that, would need to be done up front, and therefore there wouldn't be, that type of split, the 30-70 split because of that. In fiscal year 27, a lot of reasons because of the startup costs. There would be about $176,000 shortfall. So there would need to be help from the general fund to help fund the water park during fiscal year 27. And then if you look at the full season of operation, there would be a $79,000 deficit for the first full season. I'll try to show you how that is calculated, based on the spreadsheet. So on the spreadsheet itself, it's a little different than the other funds and the way that I presented it, because I show fiscal year 27 budget and fiscal year 28 budget, and then show the total operation. Now, obviously, we're not approving the fiscal year 28 budget, but I wanted to show if we were doing a full year, we would be budgeting, the full amount over, the season. So the costs that you see in fiscal year 27 are the costs we anticipate incurring fiscal year 27 up till June 30th of next year. And then the 28 would be the remaining 3 months or so of the water park season.
Well, one thing we could do is we could have another line in there and saying days not open, liquidated damages. And so there's a cost per day if we're not open.
Well, my assumption is just that it's going to be open.
Okay.
There are liquidated damages in the general contractor's contract that they will pay us, but hopefully we don't have to include that as a revenue.
Yeah.
The first line item, the grant from the general fund is, what I just stated in my summary. In fiscal year 27, we need to have 176,380, granted from the general fund. And then fiscal year 28, hopefully the water park will see a surplus, and that, they would be giving back 97,000 to the general fund as it relates just to those 3 months. But when you go and look at it for the full year, when we do the fiscal year 28 budget, it will probably be, a deficit anyway. But this is for 1 full year of operation. We're really dealing with fiscal year 27. Total deficit for the operating season would be 79,000. All of the
So that's based on the daily admissions being the fiscal year 2023 price, or a little bit more than that?
So all of the other revenue sources,
Well, I'm just saying the daily admission, it says on the fiscal year 2023, almost 600,000. So that's what we're saying. The admission is going to be based on the fiscal year 2023.
I see what you're saying. I believe the capacity is going to be a little higher as well. So it's not necessarily the admission rates are going to be higher. But if the capacity is higher, then the admission rates can be a little lower. Is that right, Marilyn?
Yeah, I think that's what everybody's wanting to know. What we're expecting that to be. Is that what we're saying?
So there is a rate schedule for each of the revenue items. I've sat down with Marilyn, and she's done, a lot of the research related to the revenue and expense items here. She don't want to speak for her, but she met with other operators of other water parks that are currently operating in Delaware and I think some other places, and sat down with them and discussed rates, for the different types of rate structures that we have. So The daily admissions, the group events, season passes, those types of things are based on her research. So they're not necessarily fiscal year 23 rates. They're, some of that was looked at, but also current rates, that are being paid in the market now have been used for that. I don't know if you want her to comment any more on how those rates were generated.
No, but it's pretty much, you did the research. We're basing this on what current rate practices are right now. It's not based on 2023. All right, I was gonna.
It should not, it shouldn't be as high as the 2023 prices. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, because they discourage people from attending those prices in 2023. All right, anything else on the, on this, Dan?
That's all I had to comment on the revenue side. It was done, based on analysis and, rates and, times capacity and days
Okay.
open.
All right.
I do want to call out, it is hard to look at some of the budgeting when we don't understand what the actual missions would be. And I do think we should have an opportunity to weigh in on their draft of some sort, so we can at least understand what projections are, the research they did, so we could understand just some of this behind this. And then I had a question regarding the professional fees. That ties back to, I'm assuming, like the entry, like electronic systems for entry and.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we list three of them. Ficina is our IT company. There are systems there. Microsoft and Convergence. I'm not sure what the Convergence system does.
Come up to the podium, please. Yeah.
Our online system, like our online payment system for making online payments, through the system. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Not coming to the window, but paying online. So that was one of the systems. We probably won't have the same ones. That's why it's really hard, because I have to figure out every single new professional that we're going to use. So we don't know that for sure, but we just know it's going to increase. Also, our Ellis, there's going to have to be a lot more people trained. Usually we would, only have to train one or two because we lose one or two people, but it's like train the trainers that are going to train the lifeguards. So there's more training involved.
And the wages have gone up since 2023, I'm sure. Like the lifeguard wages and stuff.
Oh yeah, that's under wages for, are we talking about that yet, or?
Yeah, it's a line item on the expenses.
Okay, so yeah, I did a whole series of.
I'm trying to recall from our previous discussions whether the number of lifeguards, for example, will be similar to what we had in the past.
Very similar.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
very similar.
All right. Other
But
questions?
the minimum wage has gone up to $15. So,
Yeah,
so
that
that's a
doesn't
big,
help.
yeah, that's a big
Okay.
consideration when I did all the computations. And for all of my research, I used mostly fiscal year 2022 because that's what I was most familiar with. And I think that was before things started to get like a little bit weird. So I used that.
Is that a technical term?
Yeah.
Already have the research that you did somewhere that you can just shoot out to family to get
A
the,
mountain full of stuff.
or do
that
you
I've
have, do you
seen.
have anything summarized that you can just send out to us so we won't,
Yes.
ask you a bunch of questions where you can just say,
Yes.
take a read on this.
Yeah, like the two biggest items, admissions and wages, I spent the most time on.
The marketing line item is pretty high. I see that you want to remarket it because it hasn't been open. How do we
Yes,
plan on doing most of that? Like social media, mailers?
a combination of a lot. And I think we're going to need to use some radio too, especially out of county.
Okay.
I think in county is a little bit easier, but
Yeah, I mean,
out of county, there's certain markets that we use,
Gotcha.
that we're better than other markets? And
I think we should put a big billboard right at Six Flags entrance.
yeah.
Chesapeake Beach Water Park this way. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
Okay.
other questions for Marilyn?
Will it be okay for us to get a summary from you so that we can,
Sure.
just be on the same page?
Yeah, you mean just send something out?
Yeah, just
I'll
a
run
nice
it by
little
Dan
summary.
and Samelia first,
Right.
and then I'll send it.
Can you include in there, the thing that I'm intrigued with is when we talked about this water park is the entry process. And I know between the 2 fiscal years, it's 125,000 for the technology fees. I'm intrigued to see what route we're going. That's a lot of money for tech, it's like software. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like, because if we're gonna have this beautiful water park, I would hope our like entry process is not clunky. I know you wouldn't purposely do that, obviously, but I'm intrigued with the software aspect.
Okay.
And then fees are so tricky, depending on if you use like the Bluetooth and then the whole different combinations of them. Some fees are like super expensive versus if you scan your car. So I know that's a whole thing into itself. So I don't know. I guess some of it just,
Yeah.
you have to pick the middle ground or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
thank you.
There's a lot that goes into it.
Sure.
Marilyn, before you head off, have you had any discussions or have you put into your calculations, whatever the plans are for, citizen discounts? Do we have any details on what we're gonna do for the citizens?
Are you talking about for Chesapeake Beach residents?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, we have a rate sheet that I used. I don't know if
That
that's,
would be in the summary, right?
And I think we discussed, like maybe going back to the after 3:30 PM on Tuesdays, make it free, like those kind of things.
yes.
Because, you know me, I'm always worried about, what it costs to do stuff. This is a big, huge budget item for us. We spent 18, 19 million dollars to build this, and it's not just the town's money, it's the people's money. The people are paying for this to be built. So they're already paying for it to be built. They shouldn't be paying anything near the same rates, even at peak times, as other people from out of town, out of county, in my opinion. It's a double whammy if we're hitting them twice with the cost to build it and then again with full admissions.
I agree.
So I'd like to know what, in more detail when you get a chance. I'm sure you're still thinking about this and developing strategies and so forth, but when it all settles as far as rates go and how the residents are going to be interfaced with and what they'll end up looking like, I'd love to have that information as soon as you know it.
Sure.
One thing that might be nice for us, speaking for next year, is like I think it was on Black Friday. It was like a good sale, and if we had that, then we would know what we would need for offsetting for the general fund for upcoming. So right now it would be before the water park opens next year. So we would be in that conversation, and you say, "Hey, we had 500 Chesapeake Beach town residents apply for their family season pass cards," and then that's the number we use as a general fund.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it like everybody said, like the taxpayers spent a lot of money for this park, and they should have an opportunity to have it, enjoy it.
I think you'll be real happy with the discounted rates for the season passes, because those, Jonathan, I shared them with the water park committee just to kind of see what they felt. And I think they thought we were really in line. They had a few adjustments that made sense. So
I think that summary will help us all out a lot so that we won't have you up here and just keep saying stuff in front of you over and over again. Let's get the summary when you get a chance
sure.
and throw in our retina scans for entry. We'll be all good.
Okay.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Yeah, some facial recognition. We can do that. I'm just joking. Thank you, Marilyn.
All right.
While we're on the water park, can we have an update on the status of the construction progress?
That'll be included in my report next week.
Okay, so there is an update and movement.
Right on schedule. I was thinking everybody was going to be saying that same thing right about budget time, because it wasn't going to look like nothing was getting done. That's just, that's how it is. Once things get started, get started. So it'd be nice to hear an update, but I imagine once the permits are,
I'm just noticing it's nice out, and I can recall Paddock Pools putting up the pressure on us to get things approved about this time last year for that reason. And it's nice out. I think it's love to see some construction, not just demo.
All right, let's move on. All right, next item on our agenda is discussion on ordinances 026-3 and 026-8 fences. You've got the ordinances, draft ordinances in front of you. Sarah's going to speak, right?
Okay, sure. So on your fence ordinance, I wanted to draft you something you could look at and refer to just recall like what we're doing and why we're doing it, because we are doing a lot with zoning. So you have a new piece of your packet that has a picture on it, and it says fences. Yes, that one. And so we can kind of refer to that as we go along. Because I think why we're doing it, what we did, and then did we do it the way you wanted us is the question that's out there that we need to resolve. So I just want to remind, like, the why is because right now it's in the building construction, and that means it's for Jay to review every fence. There's a couple of issues because there's not a lot of clear guidelines for Jay. There's not a process for variance or appeal. We actually have a couple of applications in right now where the lot is kind of short and the house is moved to the front. The actual regulation says that fence can't come before halfway down the property line, which in one case is actually like behind the back of the house. And there's no way for us to allow that if they want a 6-foot fence right now. And so we want to resolve those issues to make things easier for folks. And so there's a number of concerns regarding fences that aren't being addressed as well that staff had. When you have a fence without a gap under the bottom, even just a little gap, then you have storm water kind of collecting and flowing along that edge in certain places, and it can lead to erosion and damage to the fence itself. Not all contractors are installing fences in the same way, and Jay has some pictures of the middle panel of those white vinyl fences kind of getting blown out and flying around in a way that's just unsafe. Right now, you can't construct a fence in a town right-of-way, which, makes sense. If Public Works needs to get into that right-of-way, they need to get into that right-of-way. But it also doesn't make sense when you have a right-of-way that Public Works doesn't use frequently. There should be a way to resolve that. So you can build your fence, maybe put a gate, whatever is necessary so that Public Works can get in. And so we wanted to address that. There are a number of fences in town that have been constructed without a permit. They've been in place for a long time. They're not compliant. The town's gone through a variety of different code folks, zoning folks, and implementation and enforcement hasn't been consistent. And so that's a part of why we wanted to move it to the zoning ordinance, because in zoning, you can change the regulations at any time, and then everything behind it can become non-conforming. And moving forward, we do things the right way without having to have people remove things that have been there for a long time. And there's some streets where like the fences have been constructed either with permits or without permits in a way that like kind of creates a tunnel effect, especially sort of across 261 over here. And then there's lots that have like a really unique situation where they might not have a backyard, or their backyard is really steep, and so they can't use the backyard. So they may want to fence the front yard. And we certainly can make an allowance for that, where they can fence the front yard, but maybe it's open so you can still see and communicate with your neighbors and have that great Chesapeake Beach, like hanging out feel as people are walking around. And that's what the Board of Appeals can offer when fence regulations are in the zoning code. And so that was what we wanted to provide for folks. So those were the why we tackled this. We brought this to the Planning Commission because it is zoning, so zoning has to go through them on some level. And we discussed with you all whether you wanted to repeal the building code or just make the zoning code consistent with the building code. And you said, let's repeal the zoning code and put everything in zoning. And so that's why you have two ordinances. So when we put these in zoning, we allow people a variance process through Board of Appeals. We actually raise the height of front yard fences to 4 feet instead of 3.5 feet. We align where the fence can go with the house instead of the property. So you can fence in, I believe it's 10 feet from the front of your building line back, then you can fence in from there backwards instead of your property line. We required that a fence allow emergency access to the property, clearance for free flow of water under the fence, set some standards for installation that require the contractors to do right by the residents here, which doesn't always happen. So we prohibit the use of barbed wire, which was prohibited anyway, but we're explicit about it. It reads a little complicated, but there is a legal method for allowing you to construct a fence over a right-of-way now. And then it also says, look, if you've had a fence and it's been in place for like more than 10 years, even if you don't have a permit, we're not going to ask you to take it down. But when you replace it, it needs to come into compliance. And then it also provides clarity and increased flexibility for residents with corner lots. So that's what we did. But you all still have some questions. And so is the how, the way we did that, meeting your expectations? And how can we adjust to
I had a question.
just the ordinance?
Yeah, I had a question on the how, number 10. How would you enforce the 10-year rule? So like, are we just kind of setting ourselves up to have an enforcement challenge? Unless the house is built in less than 10 years, you're just guessing, right?
There's some level of guessing, right? There's some level of, you look at there's GIS. There's also, like a wooden fence, you're going to know when things are over a certain age.
Yeah, but we can't hold people accountable just by, we're going to know though.
I mean, the 10-year thing really puts us in a predicament we're saying you're allowed to have a 10-year rule, but then that's on a neighbor's property. But then they said we could have it like 17 years is like a Maryland rule. Why are we getting involved in a dispute? I think the 10-year rule creates issues.
Well, I'm okay with grandfathering. I'm not a big fan of inserting ambiguity into code because I don't know how you'd enforce
We can
that.
grandfather, but putting a timeline that we have no way of knowing, it's either from the date it is on, and we accept it the way it is, and the material and the way fences are allowed and they are present in town on this day is the material allowed to be used.
You're suggesting just start from the day we sign the ordinance on. Yep.
There it is. And then also, if you have properties, like if this house has a property and has a fence, and then this property has a fence, and the neighbor in between just puts a fence between them, that kind of has their backyard fenced in. But then if this person wants to take their fence down and then they're not allowed to go into it, it creates a whole, so I think it should be a broad view if it says this street and there's a structure to a street or something like that. So you're not saying if somebody so behind me at my house, I had a neighbor that put a beautiful fence in. and he worked with his neighbor, and their fence is like this far apart, right? And good fences make good neighbors. If they wouldn't have worked together, which they didn't have to, but everybody wants to hold back 6 inches from the property line. And I think there's this whole big argument about spike fences and all this other, like people are just fighting about it. They create a lot of things. At the end of the day, we're getting involved with this rule and how it is. And we have to think that good fences make good neighbors, and we have to sort of legislate a path to think of how many arguments are going to be in between.
So I want to ask more questions about that, because what you said, I want to pick out is that there's people who have disputes about the location of the fence. Like, is there a situation where there's fences that were constructed on the neighbor's property that we weren't aware of when we drafted this legislation? I just want to make sure I understand.
So what I understand, and
Okay.
we don't have an attorney here to say, yes, you understood that, or no, you didn't understand that. But what I understand is if you have like a shed or something like that for like 17 years or something like that, I was thinking like 20 years. Anne Arundel has a 20-year rule.
Okay.
But at 17 years, if you are taking care of property and then you're like, oh, that's on my yard, and it's been more than 17 years or something like that, and they didn't dispute it between a time like that, I think they can go to court and it resolves property drift kind of disputes.
Okay.
You can't quote me on it. I know I've read a few things on it, but I don't know how it pertains to us. So that's where my objection on the 10-year rule is. But with fences, when I've built fences at my houses, I've held back a few inches so I'm not over my property, neighbor's property, because I don't want to build a fence. The 4 inches of my property line isn't there. But then if they want a different kind of fence and they put a whole big fence in, now you have battling fences, and then that creates fights. So
May I interject for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jay-
And I'm typing to take notes and make sure I get
Oh,
everything.
no, it's okay.
Just want to make sure you guys understand. Yeah.
Jay, can you explain more how GIS would help with understanding what fences would go over the time limit?
So on Google Earth anyway, Google Earth Pro,
Mhm.
you can go back in time and drive the streets. So if someone said I had this fence, you can go back pretty far and drive the streets. It doesn't go back as far as aerial views. You can go back to aerial views from satellites to the 70s, but you might not look down and see a fence from 30,000 feet, but you can go back pretty far, at least 10 years, and drive the streets so you can see if they had a fence or not. It has a calendar. You can go back in time, if that makes sense.
Is that a way that you've been looking currently, or?
Not for fences, but well, I'll give you an example. Someone claimed our asphalt contractor 2 years ago took out their fence. When I went out there, I said, it looks old to me. And I went and researched 4 years ago, and it was the same way, and showed it to the homeowner. So that was just a way that, and I saw the year before the snow actually did it. But anyway, I don't use it in this case because it hasn't been an issue. There are no grandfatherings yet.
Right.
And I will say there are streets in town that are not driven by Google Earth, right? Dead ends and alleys. So 90% of the time it will probably work for 10 years. But there's always going to be a case where someone's in dispute and we have no way to defend it or recognize it.
Okay. And this is for the town administrator. I know that we're looking at some new software for the town. Would that software actually be able to give us that information to make these decisions easier to?
Aspects of it will be easier.
Yes.
But I think right now there's no money allocated or being requested for like a full scale GIS for the town specifically. The software that we're getting now will be helpful in at least compiling all of the information that the town has, because right now that's part of the challenge, right? Like the work has passed through many different hands, but there was no central repository for it. So then when you're trying to review these cases, you have to dig from lots of different places to find it. So new software will absolutely help streamline that process, but I don't know that it's necessarily going to resolve everything.
And Councilman Duval, Are you thinking that 17 years would be better than 10, or we just grandfather going forward without any backtracking at all?
So I don't want to put us in the middle of a conflict.
Mhm.
And so if there's a rule about like encroachments and like neighbor, or somebody has a shed on your property and taking care of, there's some rule about that. I don't want to put us in a contradiction to that rule.
Right. Well, let me look at the year thing first. Should we keep? Do you think the 10 years works, or should you? What would you do?
So the 10-year, I would either put from this moment forward or something like that, and have a whatever period, or say 20 years. To me, I've proposed reviewing and having discussions for the 20-year rule in regards to something that's in line with Anne Arundel County, of like, let bygones be bygones kind of thing. And if it ain't been an issue in 20 years, whatever that is, but that's down the road on this. But I do not like the 10 years, especially not being able to clarify if that puts us in somebody else's argument.
I agree that I don't want to be in anybody's argument. And I would say it would be very helpful. We have 5 houses that we're looking at today to have the attorney here. My question is about this 4B, and it says,
You said B.
notwithstanding the
Yeah.
provisions of paragraph 4A of this subsection, fences may be constructed in a location that restricts access to an easement or right-of-way, provided that the property owner executes a declaration of covenants to be recorded in the land records of Calvert County in favor of the beneficiary of the easement or right-of-way in a form prescribed by the town. Do we have all that figured out?
So the attorney does. The way this kind of happened was the planning commission said, yes, we agree, people should be in certain situations able to build their fences over a right of way, but we don't have the legal knowledge to know how that works. So when we send this over to council, can we say, hey, council's attorney, can you draft the section that achieves this goal? And so this was drafted by the attorney to achieve that goal.
I can explain it, Laura.
What I don't understand is if somebody can go and get permission to build a fence in a right of way, and now the standard right of way laws don't exist anymore. Is that what happens? Like, I would not be for this code if that's what this is doing.
It's a legally recorded deed, like it's an amendment to the deed, so it goes with the title. And it says that the fence can be removed by the town as needed.
Okay.
So it's
So the
she-
right of way still exists.
the right of the way
under
still
covenant.
exists.
Laura, I can explain. This is actually, so this was something that was important because when we were campaigning, there was a house that we talked to, and their house, it happened twice. It happened a couple times, but 2 houses try to connect a fence, or 2 houses are next to each other, but there's a easement that goes through for sewer or stormwater, and you can't go over the top of it. So one house can't put a fence up to connect in, so they can do their entire house except for like one corner of it. So then the piece is like, no, they should be able to do that. But as a homeowner, you understand that if Jay or the town or the county has to come in to do maintenance, they have the authority to pull that out. And it's the homeowner's responsibility to then fix and repair.
Yes, I'm for that.
That is- yeah.
I'm not for, I've read a lot of things about easements and right of ways and in this packet. And I just want to make sure that we're not taking away right of ways.
Yeah, but to have to file something with the title and all that other stuff, I mean, that's a lot of burden. Like, now you're making it more like jumping through hoops. Why are we trying to make people jump through more hoops?
Well,
I
I
don't
think-
know. If,
Yeah, and I think you're right, right? It feels like hoops is, why can't I just put my fence up here? This is stuff I mow. Public Works is never here. But the bottom line is, it is still a right of way. And so what we're trying to do is say, instead of saying, no, this 3 feet, you can't fence in, and so you have to build a whole side fence, we're going to give you a way to fence in that 3 feet. Yes, it is legal hoops, but at least it's a solution that you don't have.
That's your
Right
own
now.
risk.
I mean, everywhere I know, if you have an easement to storm water, you put something there and they come there and they gotta get in the access, you gotta cover the cost. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's the rules that everybody lives by. I don't know why we're having to make hoops to jump through on something that everybody knows that's the rules.
It's because we can't sign off on a permit that goes over a right of way. So people would have to build fences that are illegal, and then we would have more issues of illegal fences. So we want to give people a way to come to us with their fence for us to be able to
We
sign a
can't
permit.
permit, we can't not permit. Why are we getting involved? Like that's,
Like, why do we have fence rate? Like, why do we do?
if you're saying that you can't do it, but then you can do it if you go through all this big complicated thing, why don't we say it needs to be open? If we ever need to get to it, we need to get to it. We can't say you can, or we can't say you can't, but we can permit from here to here, and that's it.
Oh, because the attorney advised we can't do that. So that's why it's the way it is.
But what we could look at administratively is ways to make that process less cumbersome.
Right.
Could we look at, I mean, could it be a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the town versus, and it's just on file here versus, I have no clue what the legal process is.
And so that's something, well, that's something
I
we would
asked
have to talk through with the attorney.
And if I can weigh in, just because I'm gonna be the one going out there, and believe me, you don't want a free for all. There's more right of ways and stuff in this town, and you just, because you may think, I'll tell you what I'll do. You can do whatever you want, but when I take down their fence, I'm gonna give them your number. And I'm being honest, because, and then we have it solved.
Put that in the ordinance.
I'm not going to,
Thanks.
um,
Appendix E.
maybe,
Not to interrupt you, all kidding aside, so a developer comes in, you have right of ways, you have easements, you have stormwater, you have to have stuff going to these houses. They have to pick someone. If you pick a house, look at your plat. You live by a stormwater easement, well, you probably got a discounted rate. So you can't just come in and the town designated it and now all of a sudden I'm gonna build my fence. I get it. And I have actually signed off on 2 in Chesapeake Village where it made sense. It's all underground utilities. There's no manhole we have to access. They came to town and reviewed it. Yeah, it's across a stormwater easement, but it made sense. Just like you said, it was one corner. So I had the authority in that case under my script. Yeah, you can do it. Here's your thing. They also sign it as part of the permit. It's on record. So it might not be me, might not be you, but someone's coming one day. The other side of it is they put up a fence and that storm line fails, right? Who's liable? So it's, I get the handshake and let's move on. That's not today's world. There'll be an attorney involved if something fails.
So it's my understanding that the town of Chesapeake Beach does not have a stormwater, like we're not in charge of our stormwater management thing. It's the county that adopts that. Is that like, where's the stormwater?
So when it actually hits the pond, that's the county. Up to it in Richfield is HOA. But we own and maintain our own stormwater systems. The actual settlement ponds that you see.
That's in Ridgefield Station and not in developments throughout the rest of town. How does that work?
That's the towns to own and maintain, not the county.
I think the confusion is that the stormwater manual we've adopted is the county stormwater manual. So when you want to develop on a parcel, you have to comply with the stormwater manual, the county stormwater manual. But the actual infrastructure is the towns. So it's just the regulations are the counties, and the county is the one who reviews those regulations to make sure development is consistent with it. But the infrastructure then comes back to us.
What does the county's regulations say about it?
About
The fences?
So the county, I don't know specifically what the county says about rights of way and fences. I'm sure they don't permit them in rights of way. Like normally, if it says nothing, it's not permitted. You just can't build it that way. What I think might be possible, right, with the attorney is for her to have like here's the boilerplate of what you're going to agree to. It will have to be adjusted for different types of rights of way and different types of properties. But I don't think it's as painful as it sounds in the writing. Like it's painful to read, but I don't think the actual process is going to be as painful for residents.
And I hope people understand that, like, there's so many arguing that all this back and forth with us is just trying to take what other people's disagreements are. I mean, I hope you don't.
No, I hear what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I see that behind me. That was a great example that they work together. There's not always that way, and it's challenging to think about. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I think because this is why I wanted to write it down, because I want to go back to the concern you have. Like, what if you agree and then the fence goes up and then your neighbor takes the fence down? What if your neighbor has actually constructed the fence on your property line? And I think that's where the 17-year concern you have is coming in. And so I think that's where, you're right. Our 10-year, like, are we allowing someone who's constructed a fence on the neighbor's property line to keep it there? And so maybe there needs to be a caveat. If your fence was constructed on your neighbor's property, then it is not going to be permitted through this. But we're also not going to get in that, right? If you have a permit for the fence that showed you were going to build a fence on the property line and then you didn't, that really becomes a civil dispute. So we can say, if we can obviously see, we can say you're in violation of your permit. But if it's like, it's 3 inches over, and I know, because that's harder for us to deal with. So we don't, that becomes more of a civil matter or in getting the surveys. But I think that there's room to kind of expand that to make sure that we're not supporting people taking property from each other. Is that meeting your concern?
Exactly. And in having these conversations and stuff like that is just kind of looking ahead to prevent. And did we cover this scenario? Because as Jay said 100 times, if not more, I mean, even there was somebody came up with us, had some things to say. Fences, it's a touchy subject.
Hey, Sarah, can I just make sure my point is captured? I like number, I'm good with 10. I just think it needs to be a point and like call it. That's my personal perspective. And then I appreciate the easement piece. If there's a easier way to do it, I'm for it. If the way it's written is the right way per the attorney, I'm for that too.
I have 3 things.
You're only allowed 2. Oh, all right, go ahead.
All right. Well, one of them has already been mentioned, so it doesn't.
Okay, so that one doesn't count.
No, but I just want to say that I think that it's a little sloppy here with the, not that your work is sloppy, but it's sloppy to execute the 10-year thing. I would be for grandfathering existing to the day of its passing, and anything beyond that, new or rebuilt, is subject to the new code. It's just clean and simple. My other 2 questions are, so why do we prohibit, and I think, I'm pretty sure we are here, but correct me if I'm wrong, but why do we prohibit front yard fences?
2 things. I do just want to go back to your previous statement and make a request.
Okay.
I think if the public, right, knows you're going to grandfather every fence from once you pass it, there are lots of people who are asking us for permits for fences that they can't build. They have a lot of motivation to just go build those fences without permits. So it might be best to say maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, so that people don't have an incentive to build fences without a permit until it gets passed. That's just my 2 cents.
Well,
When was this first introduced? We could do that date.
Right. I just wanted to put that in there, but I do want to answer.
Like, where's the line in the sand? The lines in the sand is, I mean, no, she's saying, because for 20 days, you can put a bunch of fences up if the line in the sands when it goes and act it. Recreate that line.
Process now.
Yeah.
There's already a process in place, right? It has to go through Jay. Yeah.
But
So
Yes.
if they build without a permit, then
Right.
it's
So I think
an illegal fence anyway.
that's true. So then your second question is about prohibiting I wrote prohibiting and then I
I
didn't.
think it was
finish typing.
about the limit on the front yard.
The front yard fences, right? So, you've said a couple times that good fences make good neighbors, and I was curious about that. So I went and I saw that it was actually a poem by Robert Frost, and there was follow up. Like the author is contemplating, like, why do we have this fence? Like, what is its purpose? Like, what am I walling in and what am I walling out? And I thought that was powerful as a planner, because the reason planners tend not to like front yard fences and communities don't like front yard fences is because they prohibit this conversation, right? So front yard fence that's 4 feet, 3.5 feet, you can still see your neighbors, communicate with your neighbors, and community gets built in this front yard. A front yard fence that's 6 feet, well, now it's
I agree with that. So this does allow a front yard fence.
just not one that's over 4 feet.
Okay.
So we're increasing from 3.5 to 4.
Just for clarification, that's the way it's always been.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Tell you, that kind of really hit the thing. The front of someone's home is a welcoming thing, and preventing and blocking and all that stuff. Yeah, that shouldn't be allowed.
All right, this is my last one. So, talking about the easements and right of way, and I think we're specifically talking about town right of ways, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what about a situation where you have a flag lot and there's another person that branches off the flag lot down and they have an easement to use that other person's drive to get to their secondary flag lot? If the person who actually owns the initial drive wants to put a fence across the front, is there a procedure or some type of way for them to do that with the permission of the other person who already has an easement there? In the same similar style process that we have outlined here for the town to do so?
I would say no. And I would say no because everybody doesn't always live in their house. So people sell their houses. New people move in.
Yeah.
New people have different arguments. And I think closing off somebody's access to their lot is problematic for that. But it's also problematic from an emergency access standpoint. If there's a gate over your front yard and fire, these are reasons we don't like
what if both residents say, hey, you know what? This guy wants to build it and he wants to put a gate there and he's going to give me the code and I'm fine with it. Is there some way to codify that? Is there some process? If they want the gate, they both will have access. The right of the easement is still there.
Can be codified between them.
Yeah.
Right, but it's
Not-
I guess it's I just wanted to bring it up because it came to my mind. I'm like, I don't think this situation is covered
Very
here.
specific.
What are we gonna do?
Yeah. From a health and safety standpoint, I just don't think it's a good idea because there's too many factors, right?
So that fence could never be built.
They would have to just build it on the other side of the driveway access, right? And I think we've all been down those uncomfortable little flag lot driveways where you're surrounded by fence because people wanted to fence in their yards. But yeah, I think that's the safest thing.
So we couldn't have. I mean, it couldn't be covered by any type of variance process or anything like that.
I just don't think. I think ultimately, like health code and safety rules would overrule something like that. I don't know. You maybe know more about that than I do.
Only question I would say, if it moves to what we're talking about, would they have the right to appeal it? Could they sit in front of a board? That's my question, because right now they can't.
Yeah,
Yes, they could go to
Okay.
the Board of
So there is
Appeals,
an avenue
there
anyway.
is a way.
Yes.
And then that would rest on the will of the board at the complexion of the board at that time and whatever they think. So, which
Yeah.
can change from time to time.
And I'm not trying to say,
Yeah.
but there could be a very specific one-time unique example where they can justify, they do have an avenue is my point. And currently they don't.
Yes.
I don't know of any situation like that. I'm not thinking of a particular situation.
I get a doomsday fence. right?
I was thinking of
Having fire nightmares.
This ordinance came to us last meeting or the one before, and we kicked it back to this work session. So do we have enough discussion tonight to be able to vote on it at the next meeting?
But if anybody has any motions to make, they can make the motions. We can pass it or we can fail it and wait.
I think there was a bunch that we were waiting on for a lawyer to weigh in on a bunch of it. So I don't think we're ready because look how many, what have we been on this for that many?
So the
I guess-
10-year thing, do we have consensus to go back to the date of introduction? I think it sounded like,
Fine with the date of passing because they still need a permit. They need a permit.
February 4th,
Today.
2026, right there written. February 4th, 2026
That's
is
the
the
date of
line in the
introduction.
sand.
We would have
see
to
what
make
you're
a
saying.
motion to change that to grandfather existing to the date of passing, because you got to remember, we also have to take one ordinance off. You got two. One thing comes off and this takes its place. So we have to vote on both of them to make sure that we have something to replace it, what we repealed. Because that was.
Which is why we said before, we need to put the passing ahead of the
Mhm.
repeal in case the
Right,
passing.
because Lori was like, well,
doesn't
take it away if we don't have anything to take its
And
place. So-
and I think Sarah was cautious. She's like, oh no, like everybody in the world is going to go for it. So the line in the sand is just
Yeah, but when-
February 4th, right?
When we fleshed that out, we decided that they still need a permit to this day with J in order to build a fence. So if they do not seek a permit and just build a fence, it's an illegal fence.
Then we'd have to go through and take all the offenses that are in out.
Yeah.
That's the problem because there's so many people that have 6-foot
Nah.
fence in front of the house, which has never been allowed.
The point of
So-
grandfathering is so you grandfather all the fences that don't have permits.
Ollie, ollie, option.
Yeah, so it's a separate point. Like B1 is that it has a valid permit. B2 is that it's been
Right.
there for 10 years because we know people built them without valid permits. There wasn't code enforcement to enforce it.
Okay.
And we don't want to go and send code enforcement all over town telling them to take down
So
their
yeah, I
fences.
mean, I would agree to.
But if
I would
it
agree to
passes next
last
week,
month or
but if it
today,
passes,
this date.
well, hold on though, if it passes next week, first off, nobody's going to rush out to go build a fence in the next. It hasn't. Hold on, we haven't made the motion, so it's in the.
This is public.
Yeah, like the 6 people on YouTube saw. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
I just tell you, if that, man, look, you can't say that. I have to say, we have a line to say it was back before we even said that.
the work session for this.
No, we know that. We make a motion at the next meeting and we vote and move.
All right.
I want to hear about this.
I think we're done with this, aren't we, Sarah?
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Wait. So we're not doing anything, like, this is the exact ordinance that we're going to
so
see?
you have to make the motion next week.
Yeah, because this
It's already been introduced.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's already been
been
introduced,
introduced. So this is what we're going to see.
Right, so we got to make motions. We got to make. Thing.
I thought we were supposed to combine it with the other one, what Lori said.
As long as we pass the replacement before we
And then-
pass the repeal,
Lori won't be mad
it
at
should
me.
be fine.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
I know you guys want to move on and I have my other meeting to get to, but I want to make sure that so that when we're prepared for the motions you might make and we can help you get them there. The changes that you want to make is that you want to look at this period of 10 years for the enforcement action and either move it to a shorter period of time or eliminate it altogether. And that's something you're still sort of
Eliminate.
deciding on. And then
Well,
That's the only thing
not make a
that-
determination on, just make a determination that it's there, not make a determination that, because we don't want to say it's authorized on somebody else's property. So whatever the tricky legal language of that, that's where my caution about not being ready for,
No, she's talking about.
No,
the
I see what
10
you're saying.
years.
she is talking about that. That's what I'm talking
we're
about.
talking about the same thing.
We're talking about the same thing.
I just understand. Yes. So
Gotta
what
understand Dan speak.
the motion that that Councilmember Duval would be making is that B2 would be amended so that it's existed in its current location and configuration for a period of 10 years or more, 10 or more years, and is without enforcement action and is fully located on the property of the fence owner, right? You want to make sure that's not on somebody else's property. So it's not exactly that language, but it's something like that that has to go on there. Yeah.
Yes, but I also think he wants to eliminate the 10-year.
Yeah, any and all language of the 10-year. I don't think we should have anything in opposition of what, when it comes to that kind of stuff, that's a tricky thing. So I don't think anything referencing 10 years. I don't know why we picked 10 years, but it should either be whatever allows for that state law to be there and us to be behind that. But whatever the lawyer says in regards to that, I don't want us to be involved in an argument.
Yeah. Well, okay. So what we're trying to do with the 10 years is allow people who have illegal fences and have
We
had
should
illegal.
grandfathering. So I thought the idea, we get rid of the 10 years and then we pick a date. It's either the date of it was introduced or the date of the passing. And I think that's what we're all.
It has
So,
to be introduced.
okay, there you go.
Get rid of it.
Date of the, you remove the 10 years, the date of the introduction. And then,
There would be an amendment we will be
Correct.
to discuss.
Yeah, we'll make that amendment.
You want to make
Yeah,
an amendment to the date,
we'll make that motion.
back
for
to
that.
the date it was introduced.
I have an administrative question about how this would work actually when the staff has it. So that grandfathering seems to work well
Mhm.
when the people who've lived in the house live in the house.
Mhm.
But if new people come
Yes.
and they say, this doesn't align with code,
Right.
is it that you bought the house before 2026 or after 2026, so you just have to deal with what you have?
Right. So this is a point, and the planning commission actually spent a lot of time talking about this on another matter. It's like things don't get disclosed
Right.
when people buy houses. So they buy a house. Oh, it's got this beautiful deck. Come to find out, the previous owner had a stop work remove order on it, and now they have to remove this deck that they just bought the house for, and they didn't know.
Mhm.
Right. And maybe it's not safe, right? So there's all sorts of reasons this happens. And so if you're a new homeowner, you come in and you buy a house and the fence has been there for more than 10 years, but it's a little old. So you're going to fix it up and you think you're going to put the fence in the same place. That's a question, right?
No.
And you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
because your fence was grandfathered. Now this is what you have to do. And I wish that I had a solution for this problem because it's so prevalent with so many things, floodplain regulations, non-compliance, interior and exterior, and there's just not enough disclosures when people buy houses.
But
And it's
when
upsetting.
someone goes to get a permit to remove and rebuild a fence in the same place,
Mhm.
they'll learn before they do any demolition what's going on. So,
Hopefully.
well, that's on them. That's not
Right.
our responsibility.
But it's like this, you go in and you'll put a fence and then you say it's, oh, well, your neighbor complains and you have to move it back and you're expecting to put the fence in. And then you say, oh, well, you can't replace it. I didn't like how you couldn't even replace panels. So you're just going to let things deteriorate. Like,
I thought it was a 50% rule that we have in here, but I'll have to.
like a grandfathered fence, if you have to do it, then it has to go away. Like there's not a percentage thing.
Right, if it is, it's if more than 50% of the linear length of any single fence line defined as a continuous run of fence along a single property line is removed, replaced, or altered within 12 months, the entire fence line shall be brought into full compliance with subsection J. So that's typically the 50% is the threshold typically for substantial improvement to things, and that's when it triggers it. So you can replace those panels, but if you're replacing more than 50%, then you need to bring it into compliance. So
What is altered? How are we defining altered?
I mean, it's just going to be when it comes in, right? Or it's someone's doing the work. And I think that the real issue is going to be fences in the front yard that are more than 4 feet, right? Those are problematic and they're not permitted. And so they don't have a permit. And so that's really where you're going to see it. Someone replacing the back part of their fence, they they may come in, right? They should come in, but they might not come in.
But when you say 50%, is it 50% of all the fencing or just the front yard fencing?
Oh, it's 50% of any, so it says the linear length of any single fence line as defined as a continuous run of the fence along a single property line. So the side, the rear, and the other side, but not these two pieces that connect it. Those pieces you can replace fully, really. And so that's, it will be challenging, but we already have a challenging situation that I think we want to, people who come and ask us for fences, it's awful to have to tell them, like, you can fence in your backyard, but it's not even going to be connected to the back of your house. And we do want residents to be able to do these things.
Right. So that's the example I've been trying to. So my neighbor had a fence, but he had this fence, and then the other one put a nicer fence in, and he has another neighbor that has a nicer fence. And so by him just trying to do the right thing and be a good neighbor, then he would have been in a jam. That's what I'm saying. Like so you're saying linear foot, but with his situation, he wouldn't have had the linear foot. And so then if he had something happen, so you're saying, like, if a side yard is defined as a side yard that's fenced, and this neighbor has a nicer fence, then he can say, yeah, you can and do your whole yard and put a nicer fence in instead of having battling fences.
Yeah. So if you connect to your neighbor's fence, right, you can do that. Connect to your neighbor's fence because it's on the property line, but it's your neighbor's fence. So if they decide to take it down, then you have to build the section on your property line that's yours if you want the fence to continue. That's just,
Correct.
Yeah.
But if they weren't allowed to have a fence on that yard, but the other person was grandfathered in, right? And so you're saying that's a grandfathered fence line, but that other one's not a grandfathered fence line, so you can't replace it with a nicer fence because it's the greater than 50%.
Well, you will eventually have to replace it because it will deteriorate and be non-compliant with code.
There's a lot of problems and no resolutions coming out of us right now. Unless we got a way to solve it, I think that we need to just get it up, make our motions, and vote on it when it's time to do it.
I
so we
agree
can
with
move
you.
on.
And we've now spent
Yeah, I'm
45
sorry, I
minutes of this meeting on this particular topic. And we've still got quite a bit left to go. So I think unless somebody objects seriously, I'd like to just move us forward on the agenda. And we can, vote on this at the next meeting. And if anybody has amendments that they want to propose, they can bring them up at the meeting. And if the council agrees to the amendments, we will include them. But at this point, since we're really, in my mind, way behind schedule, and like I say, we started talking about this at 7:15. Sarah, thank you for your patience.
Thank
And let's move on to the next item, the discussion on O-26-4 taxation. And Jamie, I believe you're taking the lead on this.
Yeah, this one was just, actually, he's here in the back, was brought in because there was a question regarding the time, or like if you had to be a resident or Calvert County, because the way it was written was Calvert County. We went back and looked at it, and in the county's application, it's in section, it's 136-59 eligibility. B says that was and has remained domiciled in the state of Maryland. So it's not Calvert County. So because of that, Alyssa had sent a revision to make it match the county exactly. So that was the remaining question. You guys can debate it all you want if you want, but I think that was just puts it in front, and then the council can make a vote yes or no in support, and it'll either pass or fail.
And this is the same issue that we've been discussing for quite some period of time.
Yeah, it's
isn't it?
just, we pulled it off because there was a good question, because ours said
Okay.
specific Calvert County, the counties in the state did not explicitly say that. So we were trying to only match.
To make sure it's succinct, domicile from the date adjudged. So the date that you were adjudged to be, yeah, so that's in Maryland and Calvert within 10 years after the judgment. So state of Maryland, when you had the adjudication, and you can move to Calvert within 10 years after that, and then that's what makes you eligible.
Yeah, and it goes through, the state has a process. I don't know what that looks like, but there is a formal process that you have to go through with the county and the state.
So, we had some public comment from somebody at the fire department, about getting the tax credits. So it looks like that's covered under,
That's tax credits for their home. That's a different thing than this right here.
This is only for disabled.
It's only for disabled, but
that
the
meet
one that they
that
wrote
meet the
about.
state and county.
So does this mean that we would not have to administer it then? Because that was so
No, there was a requirement that, Sabelia, I think this is correct, that there is a requirement for us to administer it internally. However, it's only a handful of residents that meet it.
the volunteer fire
No, they're-
tax credit
That's a
would be a
different-
separate.
that's a different.
That's separate because this is
Mhm.
tied to
Right.
disabled.
Yeah.
That's a home.
Like it's
tax credit.
disabled, like in the line of duty.
So this is, I think, we're moving. So this is, I think, what we are all trying to say through all this, but there was something where Alyssa was saying we have to still administer it or do something about that. But here, that burden of all that work is done. Correct? That's what I'm understanding. What I was trying to get to is that the bulk of the work is certified from someone else and we accept the certification. or
Right, and there
something
may
like
be
that.
additional questions that we have to ask. We wouldn't have to recertify what's already been said.
All right, good.
Okay, any other question?
Is this a mirror image of the county code or not?
It is, and that's why we pulled it out to make sure it matched instead of, it previously was not because it was explicit to Calvert County, but it is now.
Yeah,
Per-
I see
per
where it
Alyssa-
covers all law enforcement.
Yes, and she did have
Instead of
to, Alyssa, and I don't want to mean to speak for her, but she did say that there was some nuances she added in that ties back to how the state says you're supposed to do this. But that's like legalities.
Yeah, so the nuance that I see is was the principal residence of the fallen law enforcement officer or rescue officer and his or her spouse or cohabitant at the time of the fallen law enforcement officer's rescue worker's death. I don't see anything in this, and I did read it quickly because it was a revision that came later. I don't see anything that requires it to be a principal residence, and I think that is important, that we're not giving tax credits for any or multiple second homes. So if there's no principal residence language in here, I don't find this appropriate.
All right, that's a motion that we can look at next time. we go
Yeah,
to
I
vote
agree
for
with
it and Let it
that.
go.
Should be a primary residence.
I'm going to double check. I agree 100% with you too, because
Mm.
that's the same way the veterans get theirs. It's principled residence.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a great call out.
Looks like that's under 257-14A1. Is that principal residence?
See, you're looking at the revised, right, John?
Yeah. A1, right here.
Is the principal residence of the disabled law enforcement officer. That's the first sentence.
Yeah.
Property that is subject of the application is the principal resident. This is on the revision on page 3.
Right, but then you have two, was the principal residence.
Well, it's a
means
fallen,
it
this is
used to be.
fallen. It's for, if you have a fallen,
Because of the
They're
fallen, right? So that means that person can still stay there and be underneath that until they,
So only this house,
yes.
Right. Yeah,
the one at the time. Okay,
I think
perfect.
that's covered.
Yep.
Okay, good. Excellent. Now we're moving forward. We did that in 5 minutes.
Yay.
All right, next, right away and easement discussion. Who's got that?
Damn. That Diane?
Hand of all?
Happened.
Oh. Is that this jacket?
I think we maybe push this to another work session. This is a little long in the tooth of a conversation for being 8 o'clock at night. What do y'all say about that?
Second that.
Bless your heart, brother. That's good.
They've, 6 new friends or more. Okay, we're going to defer.
So proud of him.
All righty. All right, next, Elms Field Concept Plan.
I'll say we probably just do the same with that.
Well, this one, I know Samelia's got to update. I'll just be really quick. We did get some initial cost estimates back. Based off of those cost estimates, though, I think it's owed to the council that we come back with alternative options because it was higher than what we said. So I want to understand with Wayne, like, what can, is there like a la carte that we can do, or can we just have multiple options so that I'm not, because what I don't want to do is just say, here's the only one, here's the cost, because it is fairly higher than an estimate that came in. So but I can't give that to you guys right now because
I like
there's
that
gonna be some
idea
additional work.
of having like different concept plans like we did with the water
Yeah.
park, even though that was only 2 options. But yeah,
Yeah.
if you could do something, that would be good.
Yeah, so we're gonna work on that with Wayne and Samelia to have that conversation. So
Do you think it's still fruitful to have a discussion about the Mahoney's Diamond, or table that too?
I
Don't
don't
need to.
I don't think you even need to because and I was looking at that reference. If you go back and look at it, it actually doesn't state what it is. It just says it's Mahoney's Diamond. It doesn't actually reference anything. And it actually says this, if you look at it, none of those parks in there reference anything. So in theory, we could move those parks wherever we want in the entire town because they don't say it's this exact location.
It's kind of like a participation trophy kind of thing,
So I get the intent. I mean,
Well,
there was the intent of the previous council, so I get that, but I don't think it actually holds a lot of weight.
I think it'd be worth thinking about what to do with at least the plaque, or maybe.
Yeah, but I would only want to do that like after we've like agreed we're going to do something, because otherwise we're spinning on changing something that we haven't
Yeah.
even agreed to.
There's no
adjust.
looking at any changing anything right now.
I'll keep my update really short. I just wanted to give you guys more context to the resolution that you would be receiving on Thursday for adoption, if you so voted that way. So we received the funding, the grant from NFC, National Fitness Campaign, for the Studio Fitness Court, which is like the adult activity workout combination exercise addition. It's a studio. They call it a studio. It's like a kit type of build to be added to the Kellums Field complex area. So they have awarded $35,000 in funds for the installation and construction of that project. They ask, however, that the council adopts some sort of, completes in the resolution of adoption for the intent to put it there before as a part of their award process. And so that is what will be on the agenda on Thursday. And you can read through it if you have specific questions. I'm happy to answer them, but I didn't want it to be a surprise on Thursday. Like, why do we have this resolution here? And they ask that the town council adopts it.
Where would this workout equipment be physically?
Yeah. So we're working with Wayne and his team to figure out the best footprint to place it there. They were brought into the conversation earlier on, just when we were mulling through what the options were. So they're confident that there's a place for it to go. And part of the award process, once you have the resolution adopted, is to work with the town engineer to work with the manufacturer to figure out how.
On the concept plan, it was behind the bleachers next to the pickleball courts. And this was the item that was in the council meeting. Remember last week you saw like a blue court that was split, half exercise and half open space for class fitness, outdoor fitness.
That makes sense because
Right.
there's a fair bit of space behind the bleachers that fundamentally it's not used for much.
As long as the council agrees to take the fence down. I mean, that's Miss Lori's favorite thing.
I will agree to take the fence down.
Did you write that down? Okay.
Years.
Say really quickly is that, I mean, this project, if everything goes according to plan, could be like ribbon cutting ready in October.
Awesome.
It is a court and some equipment. Is that what it is? I don't,
Think of it like a
Exercise
pickleball court, just for notional reference. Think of it like a open pickleball court. Put a divider in the middle. One half of it is outdoor exercise equipment that folks can use, and then the other half of it is an open space that could be leveraged for
classes,
a yoga class or some kind of fitness class. And that's what we talked about. Maybe we start introducing like town functions. I know Anthony talked about bringing in folks to do like town organized exercise classes.
And part of that, like the Parks and Rec does at a smaller scale right now, like they'll have people who come in and do yoga. And it's open and free to the public during the summer. This would give them a dedicated space to do
The
that.
town does tumbling and stuff.
Yep, Tumble Tuesdays. And you also have an app that goes along with the court. And so when you're trying to navigate through the equipment, you can download the app for free and then be able to have, like, be led through the activities.
And the app was free.
Yes. Yeah. And the idea behind it, the heart behind it was we're going to have this water park and it's open for all, right? But a lot of people who don't have children or maybe more mature in the age have had, comments about the fact that, there's a lot of investment that goes into making sure that families are served, but not as much investment that goes into older adults. And so there have been requests for fitness facilities as a suggestion. And so this would meet some of those.
yeah, I would just say poll something like this because it's a little bit different than I thought. I originally thought it was going to be like a course that found.
Yeah, we're still talking, there's still talks about a walking path and stuff, but then there was this discussions, do you put a workout station at like throughout the walking path?
Yeah.
But then this one, we got some feedback, Nick. No, they actually would prefer it. So you just literally go from this exercise machine to this machine and you have it right
I mean,
there.
if you
Yeah.
have
I've seen that at
feedback,
other
that's
playgrounds.
my point.
Yeah.
Get
That was one
feedback.
of the top items actually in the survey that we did. So, yeah. Great.
I got a question. Is this resolution that we're talking about, is this severed from the overarching redevelopment of the
Yeah,
park?
separate.
So even if we decide not to do anything else at the park, we will do this because we have a grant as long as we agree to that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that grant has soccer field.
That's what people want there. That's my only question.
I don't know if it has to be in that exact location, like behind the bleachers. I mean, it could go wherever at Kellum's, but yes.
I mean, the
people-
thing itself.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that was a
Yes,
top item.
there are people that want it.
Mhm.
You could do a raise of hands.
I know because I'm one of them. I'm one of them. We're town citizens and we want it. So yeah, people want it. Let's move. Let's go to the next thing.
Listen to you.
Trying to get my yoga
Listen to
on
you.
next summer.
All right, let's move on. Okay, next, we had on the list rental subcommittee recommendations, and that was Dan Duvall.
Table that one.
You can
Yeah.
read it.
Nope. So I would like to say thank you to the people who participated and it was, we've had no shortage of opinions when it comes to the different items, when it comes to our rental policy and a lot of different narratives. I set out for a goal. I was like, hey, I think if we make too many changes, then it'll create an uncertainty. And I was just trying to make some adjustments. And we went through and started, I'd written up some stuff from different conversations I had with
Miss Deborah Montgomery Buckingham. She's very knowledgeable, and she I'm very thankful for everything that she kind of explained to me that I had no idea about. So I have to really acknowledge and thank her for a lot of the information that goes into it. She's a realtor and she deals with a lot of rental people. And I don't know, I had some really good participation in the committee. It was a lot of work. I gave homework. It was on a 3-week schedule, and we had a deadline. And I really wanted to say thank you to Anthony, to Cheryl, to Wes, and Deb, and staff. You know, it's at the end of the day, it was just a few little problems. You guys can read through it, ask me questions all you want, but it was just a few little things that were creating the, I guess, the little conflicts, little small adjustments, like in our inspection report, the vagueness of other on the inspection report. The vagueness of other could be left open to any interpretations. So we went through and we had assignments, and I mean, we took a survey. I did an evaluation. Like, you know, I didn't think I was going to make such an improvement, but I guess some of the things we had already put them in place. But this is the sort of the overview of the work that went into it. I think we have a few hundred pages of transcripts if y'all want to listen to it.
Well, thanks, Dan. This, I'm looking at the reports that you've submitted here, and this looks really very good. It looks like good work, and thank you for your hard work. Anybody got any questions or any comments on this before we move on? Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, so I know the accessory dwelling unit modification, that is,
It don't have nothing to do with us. We can't do it because the state,
we have to match the state though, or
the
we have to
state, the
remove it?
state has a new rule.
Sorry.
That ADUs are being addressed by the planning and zoning.
Okay.
Make sure that we're in accordance with the state mandate that goes into effect October 1st. So they will have their recommendations for council in the next month or two.
And the state changed the rule in March.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't
Yeah.
update with what our opinion was.
Well,
It-
the reason I would ask though is that planning and zoning will give a recommendation, but
it's the state.
I
State
mean, you
mandate.
can always surpass a state as long as you can't reduce, you can't make it more strict, but you could probably,
No, you have to watch the.
okay.
watch the
All right.
changes, and it's
But
pretty strict. It's
is
pretty
there
strict.
any, I guess my question would be, is there legislative changes that we should anticipate out of this? Or I do, like, I appreciate this is actually really well put together. A lot of it is obviously administrative actions that the town takes through checklists and stuff, but is there any legislative? Is there any?
I think there is some legislative things that we have to do. I think we had written up a resolution or something like that, Anthony, that, and this is sort of the framework that has gone into that resolution. But with that update that came from the state in March, it's sort of, I wanted to present this for us so that we all have a chance to look at it, discuss it, and then when we have the resolution, I think we really have to hear the impact. But this is to show that we are going to be ready and aligned come October for the state's rules. You like, we were almost finished with the session and something changed. So that's where we just,
So this is informational, more to follow with legislative.
yeah, there will be.
Like short-term
I
rentals. okay.
appreciate this come back with the time to talk about it
Mhm.
because the International Property Maintenance Code is basically being circumvented by this. And there are quite a few protections in that for people that we might want to consider adding. Stripping that to the bare minimum as a standard for landlords, to me, is not appropriate.
Yes, and so what I would say is that I think what would work best from a process standpoint is for you all to review what the recommendation is of the subcommittee. It's a recommendation. And then if there are legislative activities that need to happen as it pertains to the rental code, then you would make those changes there. And then the staff would acquiesce to whatever the updated code says. So if that is something you want to have or not have, the code should say if it's something that's mandated for the town to follow. So I'm just saying that the next step is for you all to figure out what your proposed changes to the actual code is, and then discuss it amongst yourself, and then someone introduce it at a time, whatever the changes are.
So if we're proposing code changes, then I think we need time to talk about them,
For sure,
because
for
there's,
sure.
yeah, there's definitely,
We are
and
aligned.
for the record, I tried to insert myself into this process before it got to the point.
With you, Lori.
But yeah, removing protections for people is not a small thing. And, there's nothing in here for rodents. There's a whole suite of things in that International Property Maintenance Code that protects human beings. And I think we should be considerate of that.
These are recommendations to look over.
So
You'll look over it, and if you see something you want to come out of it, you present that. That's it.
That makes sense.
There we go.
approved means that it was a majority.
Just between us, he was
Right.
like, yeah, let's move forward.
Majority
We think
vote.
that's a good idea.
And
Yeah.
then the two that are listed as council decision.
That wasn't a decision for us to make, right?
Because there's code now, there's livability code.
We're not voting anything in, it's just recommendations. That's it. It's just like planning and zoning makes a recommendation, and we make a choice.
So continue to move on. Next item, number 8 here, items for awareness. The general fund, treatment plant fund, mitigation fund, and Dan Baden.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So since the general fund and the wastewater treatment plant fund ordinance were submitted last month, there's been some updated changes that have been requested within the budgets for those two funds. And so I've laid them out in the documents that you have in front of you and also on the screen. So the first, and I commented on it earlier, is under the general fund, which is ordinance 026-9. We had talked to the town attorney about how to incorporate salaries into the budget, and she recommended adding another section to the ordinance, and that is shown as section 4, which states that staff salaries include a 2.7% cost of living adjustment and merit increase of 3 to 6%. As we discussed earlier, we'll have a closed session, I guess, hopefully next week to show you the salaries, and then, the attorney recommend this, how we incorporate them into the budget and approval by the council. So then when we get into the spreadsheet itself, the first column shows what the new revenue and expenditure line items would be. The second column is what the original ordinance has as the revenue and expense accounts. And then the third and fourth column show what the changes are and what the reasons for the changes are in the memo section. So if you start with the first page under the revenue, there are a few revenue adjustments. First one being a increase in the use of fund balance or reserves of 300,831. And as we get through the expense side, you'll see what attributes to those. The state bond bill for the harbor well, when originally proposed, we had it in the general fund, but after looking at it and thinking about it, we felt that should be in the utility fund budget versus the general fund. So we moved both the revenue and capital expense associated with that, which I summarized earlier when we went over the utility fund budget. The program open space grant, originally we had it at 0 after conversations with the county and how they are handling their program open space program. The way that it's been working is we submit an annual program to them. They include ours with North Beach and the county and submit it to the county commission for approval. What we didn't realize is that there was never any specific funding for all the projects that are submitted. And they're just requests, and that as money comes available, you could possibly move forward with your projects. I had, in the conversations I had with the county, I reiterated that I didn't think that that was an equitable way to share in the program open space funds at other counties that I'm familiar with, especially Prince George's County. The individual municipalities, I'll back up, the program is administered by the state through the counties. And if there are municipalities, you submit to the county and they will go back up to the state with your projects for funding. In Prince George's County, the Maryland National Park and Planning Commission allocates a certain amount to the municipalities based on a formula, I think population. So I recommended that to the Calvert County POS people, and they took it back. And in this, in their budget for this year, they have allocated 10% of their budget to Chesapeake Beach. So it amounts to about $120,000. And they said in subsequent years, they intend to do that as well. So of the allocation the county gets from the state, we will be getting a proportionate share of those funds. So we will actually have an amount that we could use from year to year. So for us, it's $120,000. That doesn't necessarily allow you to do, a full project. It will help fund a project. Under our plan, we submitted for four projects in our program this year, and it's the trails, Kellums Park, the kayak launch, and the other Beach Elementary School trail. So it's the two different trail systems in the Kellum. So if we want to use this $120,000 to go forward with any of those projects, we could do that during the year. If we don't use it, these monies will roll over to next year. So if we want to save our money from year to year and then do a project when we have the monies available, these monies will stay reserved for the town.
And then we can still go out for program open space grants in addition to these monies.
No, these are the
cannot.
program open space grants. So each county is allocated their allocation from the state. Yeah, so the state allocates it to the counties. The counties determine how they are going to administer it. In Calvert County, there was no real set way. We submit our program, and if they wanted to fund something, they would. But last year, they used all their money to fund a park in Calvert County, and we got nothing. And so, they felt that, we should get some percentage and be able to proceed with our programs based on our schedule versus them making that decision. And so this is the first year, from my understanding, that they've actually given Chesapeake Beach and North Beach their own allocation from what they are getting from the state.
And is there a Senator Miller annual amount that we get as well in addition to that?
No. not that I'm aware of.
Is this separate from the pickleball court money that we got though? I thought that was
Yes.
open spaces as well.
Yes. Pickleball court money was bond bill.
On bill. Okay. Okay, so we're good with, we're still good with that then, okay.
Yep, and the county commission, I think, met today to approve that annual program, the allocation. Not sure how that went, but I believe they meet Tuesdays, right? So that they met today, if I understand correctly.
Okay, Dan, good job guaranteeing us some money.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with this, when you got that section 4 highlighted, I'd like to have to make sure that there's in this one right here, right? There's section 4 highlighted. I'd like to make sure that we have comparable charts. So the pay is based on it. I mean, I've spent 9 months previously trying to track down the previous some pay, and $500,000 that was paid to the previous town administrator. There should be guardrails in place, and we should have some sort of mechanism so we don't have a mess that we have had to clean up. All this that we're talked about, if we don't have pay based on something, just this person's worth that much, there should be a structure where a government agency, the county has a structure in place what they pay. We should have a structure of what our pay is determined.
You're referring to pay scales.
It says right here, section 4, staff salary includes a 2.7 cost of living adjustment and merit increases of 3% to 6%. So that's what I was saying. We should have an understanding of what our pay is based on. There's a consensus of if you're a certain employee, there's a salary range, and we should have a salary range that determines it.
I fully agree with what you're saying, and I believe it's what Samaria said. It's pay scale, and we do not have any pay scales that are currently being used. There have been pay scales in the past, but with increases and things that have been given, they are no longer relevant. So I agree with you that we do need to implement a pay scale, and the actual charter, I believe, says that there will be a salary structure set up. It might be in the code. It's in the charter. I've read it somewhere. So I believe we do need to get to that point. I don't think there's time to do that because that is a very detailed survey that needs to be done to come up with comparable salaries for comparable positions. I do not have time to do that before a budget's hopefully going to be adopted next Thursday. But that is something that I would be more than willing to work with and get in place during this next year as a project to work on and bring that forth to the council before the budget for fiscal year 28 so that you all approve what the scale is, where everyone's going to be slated on the scale. And then, I think things would be smoother because I had brought that to the Samaria's attention, said, how are we adopting salaries when we don't have a pay scale? And this was the conversation we had with Alyssa that prompted, the insertion of that one section in to get through this budget year.
And just so you know, that was one of the first conversations Dan and I had, just because when we were trying to make sense of the way things were done historically, there was really no basis to do that. So it's a conversation that we've been having, we're aware of. So you're right on point about it. It's just about the timing of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of items that have cleared up. So I think we've identified that it's something that we should do.
Agreed.
And I
Agreed.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Agreed. All right.
Definitely.
On the revenues, Dan, can you further define the third line item labeled state A&A tax distributions?
The 300,000.
Commission.
That is a specific amount that through legislation the town has been allocated on an annual basis, and it's it's a little different than the first line item, which is a percentage. The first line item, I think, is 2.5% of the revenues collected by the state for the gaming or video lottery in Chesapeake Beach. The third one is a more of a grant-based amount, but it's in legislation and therefore provided year to year. And we have to provide a reporting of how we spend those monies on an annual basis. And
Yeah, I know what it is. Lori, I was just bringing this up because you were asking about Mike Miller, and that's what this is.
Okay, thank you.
that's Miller Fund,
All right,
another name for it. Okay,
all right, let's, are
good history.
we ready to move forward?
The
Anything else,
last other item on the revenue was the fitness grant that we talked about. So we've added 35,000, which is the grant amount under revenue. And then under the expenditures, we add 220,000. So that leads us into the expenditure side of things. So there are, a number of items that have been adjusted there. The first one is grant to local organizations. That is increased by $16,000 with $1,000 going to the NAACP and $15,000 to the Bayside History Museum. Under new items been added for Grant Water Park operations to show the $176,380 grant that I talked about when we were going over the water fund. Under trash removal service, that has actually decreased $31,549. I think Councilmember Evans had asked about this at the last meeting and questioned the 8% increase, and that was incorrect. It should have been 3%. So 3% is really the cost of living for the DC, Maryland area. So that lowers that by $31,549. Debt service on the water park bonds, instead of $500,000, it's $545,000. And I will provide the council in their packets for the next meeting the actual payment schedule that shows how that bond issue went. And I'll review that with you at that time. But basically, the interest rate ended up being 3.94%. And the bonds sold at a premium. So the buyers paid more for the bonds than what the face value of the bonds were because it was favorable to them. So instead of $5.9 million in bonds, the actual bonds come out at $5,446,000. And I'll provide you all with the breakdown. Seeing it on paper probably will be better. But under the payment schedule for the next fiscal year is $545,000 instead of $500,000. And as I said, that's based on actual costs after the bonds were issued. And then the capital expenditures decreased $350,000. That was because we moved $600,000 for the Harbor Road Well project to the utility fund, but we also added in the fitness court at $220,000 for the full cost of the court, even though $35,000 is covered by the grant. And then Jay has asked for $30,000 for I don't know if it's new or repairs to the Public Works garage heater. It's currently where we've submitted for insurance on it. There's been some delay in getting that approved by the insurance company. So we wanted to make sure that if it isn't covered by insurance, at least we'll be able to get that replaced next year before it gets cold again. So we may or may not need that, but we want to put it in the budget now just to be safe. So that's the changes to the general fund.
Well, with that, what I was proposed with the water
tower. I don't even think that's permanent in zone to have some garage there. I want to make sure we are allowed to put a structure there. I think we're just allowed to have a water tower there, not build a garage. So I'm not sure about that.
That a separate item. This
I
is
thought you were-
about the heat at the current garage that caught on fire a couple months back.
Okay,
This isn't the additional.
whatever that other structure is, want to make sure that we're following the zoning rules for that. I don't think that's allowed.
Yeah. Well, that's currently in the budget as a separate line item, and I don't.
Allow Jay to answer.
Signing that permit.
Oh, Jay, I gotta go.
Making a motion that we don't approve that budget.
I can't think of a. code
Is
that would
the
apply.
piece of equipment that Les was talking about needing to support the like some of the fields and stuff, is that included in this?
That was included in the existing budget, so it's
Okay,
been
okay,
purchased.
okay, cool.
There's a couple modifications and it's going to be here shortly.
Okay, cool. I know you just kept mentioning reliance on the county and a lot of restrictions and stuff. Okay, thank you.
Agreed. And now we'll have our own and it's good.
All right, so my question is, we have an introduced budget, a general fund budget, and we're going over plans. How are we going to address all these changes legislatively next week?
For a guide for you all in terms of what needs to be motioned.
We need to do a motion to amend, and that motion to amend will include all of these changes.
We can do it just like we did
Capital
last time.
improvement budget change from our last time.
300, it decreased 350,000 because we pulled out the Harbor Road project, but we included back in there 220,000 for the fitness court and 30,000 for the garage heater. So
Okay.
the net effect of that was a 350,000 decrease.
The other things we saw in there were not.
Nothing
they
else has
remained.
changed. Yep.
And then comment that I see saddle replacement in the general fund budget. I've already said my piece about that. There was one more question about the general. Does the A&A tax that we charge automatically get charged if it's not written in this budget? And then there was, I think you included the operating tax in here, which was something that you did last time by request.
Personal property tax, the utility tax for the
Yes.
utilities, yes.
Yeah,
And
So-
that rates in the ordinance as well.
yeah. Does the A&A rate automatically stay the same?
Yes. That's through
If
the
we don't
state.
adopt it within this ordinance?
Correct.
That's set by the state, right?
It's not set by the state, it's set by us.
It's in state legislation, I do believe.
By the state.
No, the 0.5%. Right.
It's not set by us.
So are we not charging that at all?
I'll double check, but I do believe that is under state law as well.
I believe that
Don't
it
have
is
that with
too.
me. Yes.
Well, I think that's something we should know for sure.
Yeah. I believe it's 2.5%, and it's paid for through state legislation. But I will double check that. You and I talked about this last year.
Yeah, we talked about it last year.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the code,
I'll get it for
there was
you.
a whole thing that happened last year, and it's in the code as a 0.5%. I made a motion so everybody could understand what was in the code and what we were charging. And I sent out a whole sheet about what we aren't charging that other people are charging. And I will say I don't have a problem with that, except that we're crashing projects that have been on the books for years and saying we don't have enough money for it. So if somebody can figure out how to not crash those projects, I don't need to talk about this over and over again. But if we cannot build sidewalks and connections to neighborhoods in places where they're dangerous, we need to talk about this.
Swerve time. Nobody crashed any projects. What we got left?
Handrails.
You're awfully dismissive.
We didn't do what you say we did. Let's just keep moving.
You did do it.
Right, so if we're done with general fund, I'll touch base on the treatment plant, which there were, I think I'll start on the expenditure side of things because the changes in the revenue is really based on the changes in expenditure because the revenues, the fixed and variable revenues for us and our partners are based on a % of expenditures. So, all the revenue items change based on one change to the expense, but we have about 3 or 4 of changes. First one is under salaries and wages, which increased 10,885, and that was based on final calculations on the salary schedule, which again you'll get a copy of next week. On the administrative side, previously the fringe costs associated with that were not included in the first draft of the budget, so that increases it. When you put that in there, it's 67,233. The first draft did not have the policy manual and agreement update, which is to update the interjurisdictional agreement. So it was asked that we put that back in the budget for consideration. Chemicals based on new costs. Josh had estimated that they, would increase 10,000 from 180 to 190,000 based on new estimates that he has. And then the capital reserves increased 30,908. And again, that's a formula based on the budgeted expenditures. So as expenditures go up, the reserves go up, and then the individual partners pay their share of the reserves, which is how the revenues get adjusted. So those are the changes to the treatment plant, total $167,026. And again, these would need to be all approved either together or separately next Thursday, hopefully.
All right. Any other questions? All right, let's move on to the next item. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
So the last item is a RFP that is out for, well, we've already closed it. We've made a decision. So that's what the memo represents. And you all would be voting on it, on the recommended awardee on Thursday. So if you have questions about it, Josh is here for you to ask them so that next Thursday we can move through it relatively quickly without a lot of hiccup. The TLDR when it comes to this particular project is that we need to have, this is a reissue. So we had gone through the process for this particular process or project before, and the bids we received were astronomical compared to what was budgeted. And so we had to reissue it because we didn't budget for that amount, and Josh was not comfortable moving forward with what was being proposed. So we reissued it, and we got more reasonable bids that are things that we're comfortable moving forward with, and the money is there. We need to put these handrails in. However, it's time sensitive because there's work that is scheduled to be done for next fiscal year that the safety would be called into question if we didn't have these handrails there in place. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not a controversial project, but I just wanted to put it before you now so that when we get to Thursday, we can move forward.
With the bid, is there for the material, right?
This is for the entire project, for design, do the work to install labor and the material.
When's the price is good for certain date? When's that date?
I would have to look back at the bid to confirm that. I
Would you
don't
check?
apologize. I can check that.
Just because if it's,
Yeah, it fluctuates all over the place right now.
yeah.
So, what did we budget for this?
This project was budgeted $40,000 based off of a proposal we'd received in January of 2025.
And so we've gone through a process, we've received bids much higher than that, and now we have gone through a second RFP, and we want to, you want to award a project in the amount of 4970. There's 49,700. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right.
Thanks, John.
There's only one thing left on this agenda. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hey.
You don't have to say no, say no. Thank you all. Good meeting. We got a lot done. We beat 9 o'clock.